Hello, everybody. Welcome to Straight Shootin' with Raven. We are finally going to sit down.
And your host, Gabe Sapolsky, who won't be on camera because he, I don't know why. Why won't you be on camera, Gabe?
It's just people want to look at you. They don't want to look at me.
Well, they don't want to look at me either, but better looking at a wall, though.
Well, we are going to finally do a regular shoot interview with you. And, of course, most of your career has been covered in detail, so we are going to mainly emphasize the last couple of years. So let's start things out in Ring of Honor, where you had one of Ring of Honor's most famous feuds against CM Punk.
Ring of Honor. I don't know if I've ever heard of that company. Who's the booker in that fucking mess? Who fucking runs that company? Me and Punk. Well, according to Punk, that I did nothing for his career because he was already a big star. That's what he told me. Didn't help his career at all. Which I found interesting because nobody knew who he was. He was just like an indie guy, but and then he wrestled me. And frankly, I mean, you know, I had no problem. That's why I came in to help. Like I told Gabe, I said, if I'm going to come in, I said I want to put people over. I don't want to, you know, I don't want to just come in there. I mean, I don't. If you put everybody over, see, that's what people don't get. If you put everybody over, then nobody gets over because all of a sudden it's diluted. My snot rag's on time. I got a glandular condition. Now, you know, it's like let me just say this. I have like I just tossed my keys over there. I got fucking health issues. Like they're not deadly, and they're not they actually are dangerous. But I mean, I caught them in time. But apparently my adrenals and my thyroid were shot. So I was sleeping like, you know, of course, you know, when I was sleeping 12 hours a day, I figured, you know, something's up, there's something wrong, and so they tested me, and it turns out that I had like adrenal and thyroid, I had high blood sugar, but not enough to be quite diabetic yet, thank God. And so that's like I ended up putting on 30 pounds in like 6 months because I'm like, what the fuck am I gaining this weight for? You know what I mean? And so I put on all this weight. So now they gave me medication for the high blood sugar. They gave me medication for the adrenals. But now I sweat like a pig from the thyroid medication because I'm not, you know, until I guess they said, well, I'll get used to it eventually. But you know, because I only started taking like a month ago on the thyroid medication, so I'm sweating everywhere. So now my snot rag, which I no longer have, instead of blowing my nose with it, now I use it to wipe my sweat off my brow. I hate sweating. Now I understand why fat people hate it so much. You just sweat, and it's like, it's nasty, and you know, it's perfect temperature out, and you're just sweating. Everybody else is like comfortable. It's disgusting. Anyway, so Punk. So so I wanted to come in. I wanted to help out. You know what I mean? You know, me and Gabe go back a long way. Gabe used to ride with me and young Stevie Richards and the Blue Meanie, who had Parkinson's disease when he drove because his hand would shake so much. It was like he had Parkinson's, and his car had no window. The windows wouldn't roll down. Did I tell the story ever before?
No, go ahead.
This is great. So the Meanie, before he was the Meanie, he was just Brian Rollins. He's a big fat guy that could do a moonsault. And back then, I mean, now everybody and their mom can do a moonsault. But back then, not a lot of people did it. And it's kind of, I mean, the learning curve in the business has definitely shot up in the athletic department. Unfortunately, it's fucking declined greatly in the actual working department. Or what's been, you know, well, I'll get back to that. But anyway, so Brian Rollins was a friend of Stevie's, and he had like some beat up like 1970 Dodge Dart or something, and the windows wouldn't roll down. And you know, being a veteran, I'm like, I'm not driving. You know, Stevie, you take care of the driving. But eventually, so he would have the Meanie drive us before he was the Meanie, and eventually it got to the point where I'm like, all right, we'll just take my car, Stevie, just drive my car. And then eventually I just drove because, you know, he was a menace to society behind the wheel. But anyway, so the Meanie would drive us pre-Meanie, and so the windows wouldn't roll down. So it's the middle of summer. He's got no air conditioning, but the windows won't roll down. So he's got to drive with the door open. And now he's got the Parkinson. It's like I guess he's just nervous. He's a nervous fella, especially back then. So now he's like, his hand's shaking, and the car's going, and the car, and there's no windows, and there's no air conditioning, and the door's open, and this is a nightmare. But he's a nice kid, though, and he could do a moonsault. He was fat. And I was like, I'm going to come up with a gimmick for him. So I invented the Blue Meanie gimmick because I was really high one night, pilled out of my gourd and drunk. I was watching the Yellow Submarine with the Beatles, and the evil Meanies were the Blue Meanies. They were the bad guys. And if you actually watch it, and watch early Blue Meanie, it's much different than when I stopped producing him and he became his own Blue Meanie. Because originally he was just insane. Like I would yell at Stevie, Stevie would yell at him, and he would just blow Stevie off and be like, I'm going to take over the world. Like he was just completely delusional. And then he actually became just, I don't know what he became. But anyway, he became less delusional. You know, and more, anyway, but, be that as it may, I have no idea what the point of the story was.
Talking about driving the Meanie's car.
Yeah, well, I wasn't talking about that. I don't know. Anyway, so back to Punk, though. So Punk decided that he was over, that he was famous without me, but oh, yeah, I know what I was talking about. See, you know, the funny thing is, I'll say, I like Punk a lot. He reminds me so much of me. He's arrogant, doesn't take any advice from anybody, doesn't listen, thinks he knows it all. It's really reminiscent of me. But the difference is he wants to be a worker, and I wanted to draw money. And that's the part that he doesn't get, is like, if you watch his stuff, he does a lot of cool stuff, but he does so much stuff, a lot of it isn't really that good. I mean, but yeah, if you do enough moves and whatever, it gets to a certain level where today's fans, their idea of work rate is acrobatics. I mean, all you have to do is be an acrobat. You don't have to have any psychology at all. And people go, ooh, he's a great worker. Well, no, he's not a great worker. The great worker is the guy who draws the most money, which makes Hogan the best worker in the business, him or Austin. And Austin actually happened to be a good athletic worker as well. But unfortunately, the gold standard has changed so much. Originally the gold standard was, putting asses in seats, being able to manipulate the crowd, get as much as you can out of doing as little as you can. And then when you would save more to do it for the right spots. However, now everybody wants to get over, and you have a lot of smaller guys that wouldn't have an opportunity, so they started doing all the flippity, floppity, floopity stuff, which, don't get me wrong, I think it's brilliant in its place. It's like if you watch the 1, 2, 3 Kid, back then, he did 80 million high spots, it was crap. Now when Pac does them, they mean something. So there's an art to it, and Punk's one of the guys, and the thing is also is, this is another big problem with guys today, is that they want to do 8 million moves. Nobody wants to, they want to do 8 million things, but instead of perfecting 4 moves, and then perfecting a 5th, and perfecting a 6th, they just do 30, 40 moves. And I'm not trying to denigrate Punk, but he's just a really good example, and I guess why I'm talking about him is because it reminds me so much of me, because he couldn't teach me either, but luckily what I wanted to learn, I was very teachable when I wanted to learn, life stuff, horrendous. He couldn't teach me anything. But when it came to wrestling, I wanted to learn. I mean, I picked the brain of every veteran. I rode with the Booker in Portland, the grappler, who was a phenomenal mind. Al Madrill, another old crafty veteran. There's a lot of them, and I picked their brains. That's all I want to learn is wrestling. They would get mad at me because I'd be like, well, why? They're like, don't question me, kid, I'm right. I'm like, well, I'm not saying you're wrong. I just want to know why you're saying that. Because if you're saying do this, it probably does apply 90% of the time. But what about that other 10%? I want to know why I'm doing it. Tell me why I'm doing it, and then I can expand upon it. But if you just tell me to do it, then I'm only learning by rote, and that's not the way to learn. I'm not learning to think on my own. That's like teaching a computer. That's why computers can't learn, because you can only give them the information and they can't add to it. They can't extrapolate from it. And so, luckily for me, the only area where I did actually listen to anybody was learning how to work in a business. And so guys like Punk, and he's just an example. They don't want to, and I've said this probably a million times. This might sound like old hat, but it's just guys like that don't want to draw money. They want to have a bunch of high spots and have a 5-star match. And see, to me, it's not a 5-star match. And okay, let me rephrase this. I've seen matches where the sheets and the internet give it 5 stars, and the crowd was just sat on their hands. That to me is not a 5-star match. I've seen Duggan have matches where the crowd went ballistic, was going off the roof, going nuts. This is back in Duggan's day. Duggan was a hell of a talent, a hell of a money draw for Bill Watts. At the end of his run, sure, he was older, he couldn't move as much, but the place went nuts. And they were having a phenomenal time, and he put asses in seats. And, the sheets are like, wow, it's a 2-star match, or it's a dud. Well, then why are the people rocking? So you have to... obviously you have to play to your audience, and Ring of Honor is a different audience. They want to see a lot of high spots. But I believe, look at Carino. Carino doesn't do any high spots, but Carino's, I may be wrong, but because I don't really follow, any wrestling that much now, but he's one of the more over guys in your company, wouldn't you say, Gabe?
Yeah, when he's around. He definitely knows how to draw money with
right.
us, too.
And when he's around, and Carino doesn't do anything because he knows how to work. So there's a huge difference between doing spots and work. Luckily for Gabe's audience happens to like people who do spots. But unfortunately, when you move up to the show, that's not what they're looking for. And so, unfortunately for Punk, he's stranded in OVW forever. And 2 reasons. One is because he has to learn how to work WWE style, but more importantly than that, they're never going to, it doesn't matter if he ever does learn to work their style, because what it is they're never going to let him get to the show and become a star, even if he deserves it, because just to prove a point that indie guys don't know what the fuck they're doing. So it doesn't really matter. And so that's why I hate the fact that all these indie guys are trying to learn how to do these high spot galore matches, blah, blah, blah. And then they're going to get to the show and they're not going to go anywhere, because that's not what the offices are looking for. But unfortunately, to get a name in this business, you have to appeal to the sheets and the internet. So you have to do a bunch of crazy high spots. Then you've appealed to them. Then you appeal to them, except now but that's not who you're going to go work for in the long run. That's just a small percentage. I don't care how vocal the internet is. It's a small percentage of the audience. They're the most vocal, but, it's like, it's kind of funny. When I got into business, it's really kind of funny, actually. It's ironic. When I got into business, I was working on my character, you know what I mean? They're like, oh, don't work on your character, kid, learn how to work. And I'm like, I saw that the business was changing. In the old days, it was more, the Gorgeous Georges were the exceptions, the Abdullahs and the Sheik. And there were plenty of guys like that, but to be respected in the business, you had to learn how to work. And I always wanted to learn how to work, but I also knew that the gimmick, the character, the personality is what's going to take you from mid-card to main event, because, there's a zillion good workers, but there's only so many stars, and you have to be a star. And I've covered this in a lot of other interviews with Gabe. The Secrets of the Ring, which I think everybody should get, and I don't make another dime off it. If Gabe never sells one of them, I don't make another. I don't make any less money. I don't make any more if he sells $1 billion. But I'm trying. I'd like to pass on some knowledge to some people, and so if this sounds a little repetitious, it might be. But but I think it's a different audience, so hopefully they'll get something out of this. But so with the guys like Punk, they want to learn how to do spots. They want to be, Punk has a great character. He's a great personality. He has the ability to make people hate him. And if he worked on that, and or guys like Elix Skipper, another guy I love to death. Elix, but all he does is work on his moves, and he's finally starting to change that. But I've talked with Elix forever. I go, Elix, even if you learn, you already can do so many moves. How many more moves are you gonna be able to do? And people are only going to see the 5-minute TV matches. So how many more moves are you going to do? And if you keep doing more new moves, you're never going to establish a set repertoire, which is one of the biggest keys to the business. So if you never set that, anybody can do 1 million moves on a pay-per-view, but that's a small audience you're playing to. You're playing to a 5-minute audience on TV, and you have to get yourself over. And the guy's like, well, I got to get more spots. We only got 5 minutes. I go, well, cut your spots out. Do less spots. Get your character over. Get your character over. So Punk has a phenomenal character. And if he spent all his time, and granted, he may be totally evolved since the last time I worked with him, but the reason this came up is because Gabe had brought up me and him in a series, and his character, I think, is what's going to make him money in the business. It's not his 80,000 moves and his so-called 5-star matches, because those aren't 5-star. Those are 5-star matches to a certain audience. It put them in a different context, and they're not gonna get the same reaction. It's like ECW, Guerrero Malenko, booed out of the joint. Gabe will tell you they were booed out of the joint every night. And Paulie's revisionized history said they were 5-star matches, and the sheets at the time, 5 stars, 5 stars, 5 stars, except nobody enjoyed them. And so it's like, and Gabe will tell you, Gabe will verify that nobody liked the matches except the boys. But that's not about drawing money. See, that's about playing to a certain audience. So the thing with Punk was, so we had our little feud, and that's when I came into Gabe. I said, look, nobody ever comes in. The only way to become a star is to beat a star in a feud. Not the only way, but the easiest way to get to the next level. It's like DDP was stuck at a certain level. Once he worked with the NWO, he went up to their level. Let's say Ricky Steamboat, way back when. Ricky Steamboat was here. He finally worked with Flair, came up to Flair's level. Now, that just because you work with him doesn't mean you will. There's been tons of guys that have worked in main eventers, and and then you know what I mean. But your best opportunity, if you have the talent, like somebody like Punk. So let me say this: he's a very talented individual. So it's not that I'm trying to bury him. I'm just using him to illustrate a point. That if you work with somebody who's in a main event position or a star or whatever, and you have the goods to carry it, once you work with them in a program, you get to their level. When I was in WCW, I was right below the top guys. There was Nash, Hall, the Giant. There's about Ric Flair, about 10 guys, and me and Piper were going to work a program, and the bookers wouldn't let me because they knew. And me and Roddy worked this program. It was a really cool storyline, and we'd worked the whole thing out. We spent a lot of time on the phone discussing it, trying to get the most mileage. How can we get the most mileage? What do we do this week, next week? You know what I mean? And that's what we need to do. A Secret to the Ring, how to book.
Definitely.
Anyway, so but then the office wouldn't let us. The bookers at the time wouldn't let us because they didn't want any more top guys, because the top guys don't want any more top guys. Cuts into their money. So they only kept as few as they could, and the only way I was going to get to the next level was to work with them, because you can only, no matter, I was always really, really well protected, but no matter how protected you are, like Goldberg, no matter how protected he was, if he wouldn't have eventually crossed paths with the NWO, he would have been like an offshoot. You know what I mean? Like, here's the main roster, here's the top guys. Then there was a couple guys like me who kind of got up, Conan who kind of pushed up a little bit, Jericho. But, you know, if you don't eventually break into the main part, you're only going to be your side little lane of traffic. And so, you know, so and the funny thing is, and nobody ever wants to put anybody over. Like Sting, you know, Flair went 45 minutes with him on the Clash of Champions and made him into a star instantly. And granted, the guy has to have the goods. So I told Gabe, I said, look, you know, obviously we're not talking about national TV. We're talking about a promotion, but I'd like to come in, and help you out. I'd like to put somebody over. You know, I'd like to work a program with somebody and make the guy. And, somebody, so, you know, it's like even, like, you know, no offense to Mick, but even when Mick Foley put over Orton, well, they were going to put him over anyway. So it's not like he took a guy who wasn't being used and said, you know what, this guy's not being used, let's move him up, you know. So, and, you know, so Gabe said, here's a guy that's not, you know, that's not anywhere in the big scene, you know what I mean? Here's a guy that we're trying to make, you know. So I said, absolutely. So I think what I was like 1-8 by the end of the feud,
something like that.
So yeah, I never won, and I was the babyface, but that's how you had to do it. You know, if I would have been the heel, I was babyface, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, if I was the heel, I would have just destroyed him, till he finally made the big come-uppance at the end and beat me like 2 out of 3 at the end of the series. But since I was the babyface, he had to beat me down, and he beat me down, and he beat me down, and of course, at the end of the feud, I got my win back, but by then he'd beat me so many times that people were like, wow, this guy's beating like an actual name guy, or, you know, who's still a name guy, not a guy who's like a has-been or a guy who's a never-was-been, you know.
Well, you guys had that one cage match that didn't go so well, and you went over in that one, and then we had to do another cage match to erase the first cage match, and then he jumped out of the cage and won that one.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, well, the one that didn't get over so well, if I recall, was why did it? What was that?
Remember, it had all the weapons in it, and they were like the worst weapons ever.
Yeah, lousy weapons. Plus, it was like a really long show, and it was a.
I still don't blame the length of show, but
no, all right. Well, I know what I'm saying, but I mean, fans get tired. It wasn't that it was a bad match either, though. You know what I'm saying? Which, you know, it's just maybe I misjudged the crowd, maybe I didn't, you know, set the match up right. But I'll take full responsibility that it didn't get the reaction it should. And there's a great example. You know, you can do all the pots and pans and all the stuff you want, and sometimes if you don't play to the audience what it is. And probably my own arrogance, I didn't watch the rest of the show. I didn't see what the audience was responding to. And I'm like, well, I can get over it. So, you know, I mean, you make some missed calls. But for the most part, that was the only one that didn't get over in the series. Yeah. But to me, the one that worked the best was the dog collar match.
Yeah.
We had a hell of a dog collar match. But and he did great, you know what I mean? But it's funny. It's like the one thing that is so hard to do is get people to sell, to stay down, just keep selling. And if I recall, and I may recall incorrectly, by the end, I think he absolutely got that. I don't know if he got that at the beginning. Or at least, I don't know if he actually...
He definitely matured as a worker throughout the program.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I don't know if he fully got it, because obviously he didn't, because he didn't continue in that vein, but it's so simple. Somebody hits you, you act like it hurts. That's it. It's that simple. You know, it's like you get beat up, and then you sell. You don't just lay there and die. You sell like you're trying to fight back, but you don't really do much fighting back, because the more you fight back, then how beat up could you be? So you get beat up to the point where it's like, oh my God, he's never coming back, and then you make your comeback. It's that simple. I mean, there's a reason why, you know, the Road Dogg, who never did anything, was so freaking over. He could talk, then he sold, and then he made a fiery comeback. That's it. That's all he did. It was so simplistic, so basic. He cut a promo, he sold, and he fired up. Anyway, but, you know, so working with Punk, I enjoyed that too, because I think it got me back in a position, like, I mean, I'd gotten real lazy over the years. No, it's true. I got real lazy over the years, and I wanted to prove that I actually still had something in the tank. So, I mean, so it was good for me too, but it amused me that to him that he didn't see that it did anything for his career, like he thought it did nothing for him, and I'm like, all right, well, whatever, you know what I mean? But obviously, it's, you know, whatever.
Yeah. What are your memories of that dog collar match? And the angle afterwards with Dreamer, and you poured the beer on the Punk and everything?
All right, I thought that was great. The you know, like, my whole thing was, this is how you have to think. You have to think, okay, know your audience, and for the most part, I understood the Ring of Honor audience. Know your opponent, know your character. What can you bring to the table? What can you add to this? What can you do that will stand out, that will make the people go, oh, shit. And so his whole gimmick was that he was straight edge. So I'm like, and my gimmick was that I'm a recovering addict, which is also true. And so if I remember correctly, didn't he pour beer down my throat first, or was that the show before?
He introduced the beer, and he was going to pour it down your throat, saying that, hey, you're a recovering addict, here, I'm going to pour beer down your throat.
Right, and so then, of course, being a babyface, I turned the tables.
Danny Doran was in there, too.
Was that?
Danny Doran was in there, too.
He was?
Yeah, he did a run-in, and then Dreamer did a run-in.
Oh, yeah, I think Doring was like the fake run-in.
Yeah.
Like, we sent Doring out. This is always a great trick. You send the fake run out first, so you send, like... Paulie did it. My favorite ever was when Paulie did it. Was they had it was a Jack in the Box or whatever. Basically, Cactus had to fight somebody, and he had a mystery opponent in the box. And out of the box comes DC Drake. What? But DC Drake was this northeastern wrestler, and back in the day, like late '80s, basically the whole '80s and the early '90s. There was an indie scene back then. I mean, many people don't know this. Even though when there were territories, there was still an indie scene, and because the WWF was so triumphant in this area, but they couldn't cover, there's too much ground to cover, so there was a lot of local Northeast promotions that ran much more, than you would find in other territories, because basically they would just turn into territories, but you can't compete with McMahon. And DC Drake was like a 10-year veteran of the New York, Philadelphia, Northeast indie scene. So they think that's the big opponent for Cactus, because he really wasn't, a big name, but he was a local name, and people were like, and of course, Cactus just destroys him, and the people thought they got shit on. This is crap, fuck you. He knocks him back into the box where he came out, and out of the box comes who you think is the Sandman, because the top of the box was like a curtain, was like a tarp, and Terry Funk had put on the same sneakers as the Sandman, the same sweatpants, the same ugly red, white, and blue Zubaz pants that Sandman still wears today, and, and probably the same sneakers. So as DC Drake goes back into the box, the tarp falls all over him and somebody else, and the guy with the tarp gets up. Now you think, oh, it's the Sandman. Well, we know the Sandman's in the company. Well, it's better than DC Drake, except then he pulls the thing off, and because it was Dreamer, or was it Sandman?
What's that? It was Funk.
It was. No, I'm saying, but who was the one in the ring though? Was it Dreamer?
No,
Cactus.
it was Foley. Yeah.
Foley. Okay, that's what I'm sorry. That's what. Yeah, it was Foley. That's what I'm talking about. My ADD and my OCPD and my STP and my oil treatment. Anyway, so Foley pulls the thing off, and as he pulls the curtain off, this is how you work. Foley's so brilliant, and I'm pretty sure I'm remembering this correctly. As Foley pulls the thing off, he's got the cane in his hand, he pulls it off, or whatever he had a weapon, maybe he didn't, but as he pulls it off, he turns like he's going to rear back to telegraph this punch, and there's Funk, and Funk is his mentor, his hero, so it's like, oh my God, what a brilliant piece of booking. And the thing is what made it, see, this is where you learn how to work. Most guys would have pulled it off, oh my God. Mick just got that little more out of it. He pulled it off and turned, so now we know that it's Funk before he does, which is a huge difference. Now, if he just pulls it off, we all see it at the same time. That's good. This is great. He pulls it off, turns, the audience knows before he does. So when he winds up, oh my, so now not only did he pull, if he just pulls it off, he can't wind up because it's his hero. He can't hit his hero. But if he pulls back, now we know that the punch is coming because he's telegraphed it a mile away. He's turning, we're like, oh my God, you're going to hit Funk. That's drama. And that's what this business is about, drama. And
Sky.
Oh, that was my mic?
Yeah. You're good.
That's what this business is about, is drama. It's like those stupid TNT commercials. But so anyway, so we did the thing with Doring. So Doring comes out, and he's got a little bit of ECW name, but he wasn't a big star for them. And it's people like, that's your big run-in, that's the big save. And of course he gets destroyed, and like people are like, wow, we don't really care, we don't care about him. And here comes Dreamer, who they thought they would never see because he worked for WWF, I worked for TNA, and we do the big thing. So now this will all be part of my secrets of the booking, but that's how you get mileage. That's how you tell a story. That's how you work. It's not, okay, I'll fucking give you an enziguri, and I'll pop right up, and you give me that. Then I'll give you this, then you give me that. High spots are a shortcut. I mean, let's face it, it's a much better shortcut than stalling. It's in many ways, it's a much better shortcut than hardcore wrestling. In fact, hardcore wrestling has gotten such a bad rap because people take it as a shortcut. There's an art to that too, which people don't use. If there is going to be a shortcut in wrestling, I'd much rather be high spots than anything else, except they're still just shortcuts. Because if you really know how to work, you don't need all those moves. You don't need to do all those moves. And in fact, by doing all those moves, you're actually lessening the impact in the grand scheme of things. you may get a better reaction that day, but in the long run, it's going to be much less of a reaction because there's not as much selling, there's not as much drama, and there's not. And if you know, when Hogan got beat up, he went down. He was on his. Once you got Hogan down, Andre the Giant, who never did a job in his career. I mean, Andre was so freakish looking and so giant back then. But once they got Andre down, he'd lay down there, he'd start selling. You know, he never said, "Hey, I'm too big, I'm not going down." And he was bigger and tougher than anybody in the business. But he never said, "Oh, I'm not going down. I'm not going to sell." And yet, everybody wants to not sell. Everybody wants to be tough. But to me, the toughest guy is the guy who gets the crap kicked out of him so bad that you think he can't come back, and then he comes back. That's the tough guy. The guy who doesn't get hurt, well, that's not so tough. I mean, you know, it's, I don't know. So anyway, so then we did the thing with Dreamer. Dreamer comes out, boom, huge pop. Punk had tried to pour the booze down my throat. I guess that's when Dorian came to stop that, but he got destroyed. Here comes Dreamer, and to make it even more mean something, if I remember this correctly, Punk, before he gets to pour he didn't pour the beer down my throat, or did? Yeah. Before he gets to, he hits my pose, hits my pose to the crowd with his back to where Dreamer's coming from. You know, we made sure Dreamer came opposite the hard camera. When Punk hits his pose to the hard camera, here comes Dreamer. If I remember, Dreamer tapped him on the shoulder. He's like, he's thinking it's the ref because who else is going to show up? You know what I mean? Boom, turns around, gets planted. We tape him up. We pour the beer, or Dreamer pours the beer.
You tied him up.
Oh no! First we get the pop. Yeah. Me and Dreamer, because you know I'm selling it away. I made sure they set me up when they were. Oh, I know what it was. I had them tie me in front of the hard, like in front of the ropes, facing the hard camera. So now I can't see who saves me. So I have no idea what's going on. So when Punk hits his pose, also one thing I hate, and people always do this, is I hate when you have your opponent and you hit your pose and the guy's standing behind you. I'm just going to get up and just hit you in the back. There's nothing worse than never turn your back to your opponent. You know, if you want to hit your pose to the hard camera, make sure the guy bumps in front of you. Why would you ever, even if you're a heel, you know, if you're a heel and you're using it to go somewhere, yeah, absolutely. If you're going to, you know, do it and the guy fucking schoolboys you or fucks you up the ass or whatever, that's fine. But it's idiotic to take your back off your opponent. At least have him in your peripheral view or something. You know, aesthetically, it looks wrong, and it is wrong. And so I made sure I was taped, and, you know, it was really awkward because I was basically almost touching the ground, I think, and I'm hung to the ropes. There goes my mic. I need like a snake thing, and the mic stay up. Anyway, so I'm standing in front of the thing like this, hanging down from the in front of the outside the ring on the top rope or the second rope, and he's pulling my head back to pour the beer, and of course but I'm beat up enough that once he lets go of my head to go fight Dorian or Dreamer or whoever, I just slump. So I have no idea what's going on. Most guys, unfortunately, instead of slumping, would be like, you know, looking over, they'd still be trying to look strong in the camera. Why? Because if I'm that beat up, first of all, I should be that beat up if I'm going to be like strung up like this. And by being that beat up and portraying it, I'm getting sympathy from the audience. Also, by being that beat up, when he lets go of my head, I'm not thinking, oh, I wonder what he's doing. I wonder what's going on. I'm not trying to, because if I was conscious enough to know what's going on, I'd be like trying to, you know, if I'm conscious enough to look tough, I'd be trying to free myself. So I have to make sure I'm out enough that I'm not even trying to free myself, and so I have no idea what's happening. So when Dorian gets beat down, I don't even know that it occurs. He comes back to me to pour the beer. Dreamer pulls him off. Plus also now, I'm in the front. He's behind me. Dreamer comes up behind. Visually, it's blocked correctly from an acting point of view. It's blocked correctly. You're getting the most mileage out to your hard camera. You can still do it to your small camera, but why not play to the hard camera, especially because it's not like you're just doing spots and stuff. You know, we're building for a big thing. So now, boom. So then when Dreamer plants Punk, he comes over to me. Now, I have no idea who's there. He frees me. I make sure I slumped, if I remember this correctly, I make sure I slumped to the ground. I still have no idea who saved me because me and Dreamer have so much history, you know, brawling and feuding with each other, and we go all the way back to summer camp. We have a 25-year history that he's the last guy, A, I would ever expect to help me, and B, because he works in another company, even more so. You know, because remember, we're agreeing to suspend disbelief. That's, you know, you have to make the people suspend disbelief. Like, we all know the outcome is predetermined. We all know, for the most part, we don't really hate each other. We all know that. But if we keep telling you that, well, that ruins the illusion. You don't go to a movie, you know, where, you know, the gladiator's, you know, wearing a Rolex, because then you're like, I've said this a million times, but the gladiator's wearing a Rolex. What the fuck? You know he's not a gladiator because they didn't have a Rolex back then. And he couldn't afford it anyway, even if they did. They don't make that kind of money on a gladiator salary. And who's going to wear a Rolex anyway when you're fighting? You know, at least you put it in your, give it to one of your buddies to hold, or, you know, you put it in your pouch. Because I'm sure gladiators had, you know, wrestler pouches. Anyway, so, you know, you can laugh out loud, because, you know, you don't try and fight the laughter. You know, my audience here of two, Gabe and his associate, and they're like trying not to laugh on camera. I'm like, well, that makes my material sound better. Yeah, so they laugh even when it's not funny. Anyway, so where was I? Hold on, let me think. Yeah, anyway, so now I slump to the ground. I have no idea who saved me. So now I'm getting sympathy, I'm building drama, and I have no idea that the last person on earth I ever expected to help me has just showed up. And if I recall, and I'm not sure if I do, did I crawl into the ring myself, or how did I get back into the ring?
No, he freed you, and then you guys go to the ring. And
but I'm saying, but when he freed me, I slumped to the ground, so I still don't know it was him.
I forget.
Yeah, when he freed me, though, I slumped to the ground, so I still know it's not him. And I think what happened was either he reached through the ropes and pulled me, and I'm still selling, so I don't see him, or something. My phone's ringing. Hold on one second. Let me just see what it is. Could be important. This could be hot chicks. Hold on. Nope, it's my buddy Andre, the special effects guy. He's not a hot chick. Anyway, if I recall correctly, I slumped to the ground, so I still have no idea who helped me. And either Dreamer came to the ground, or he stayed in the ring and waited for me. And I think he stayed in the ring and waited for me. And what I did was, as I crawled into the ring, I kept my head down, because now remember, if I'm not that beat up, I should just stand up on the floor and see Dreamer. Except if I see him on the floor, we don't have that face-to-face drama. And the minute I see him, that's the moment of the biggest drama. The minute we catch eyes, that's the biggest drama. And if we have the separation of me on the floor and him in the ring, it's good, but it's not great. It's not getting the most out of it. And that's what working's about, getting the most mileage you can out of every little thing. So I make sure, and I remember, now if I'm not that beat up, I'm not going to slump on the floor. So that's why I'm so beat up, I slump on the floor. Now as I crawl into the ring, I'm so beat up, I'm not looking into the ring. I have to be beat up enough that I don't even know what's happened. You know what I mean? Let's face it, if I'm coherent enough, I'm like, oh, somebody must have saved me. Okay, I'm okay, you know, but that kind of kills the illusion of the drama. Like, if I already know that I'm okay and safe, so I have to be so beat up, so out of it, that I don't know what's happened, and I'm still worried that I could still be getting an ass kicking, you know, maybe Punk's evil plan has changed, or maybe he's cut me free and he's going to torture me another way. So I've come to the ground, now I crawl into the ring, and remember, now if I'm not that beat up, I should be looking up to see who's there, what you would do. So obviously I want to be, but if I look up, I'm going to see it's Dreamer. Once again, now it's crawling. Kills the drama. So I got to stay as beat up as I can to get the most out of this drama. So as I crawl into the ring, still got my head down, and boom, now we have the moment. I'm either I think I might have been on my knees, or maybe I was already, however we did it. And so, but now we're like this close, you know, because now he's come close, he's broached the distance between me and him, and I've closed the distance, because that's another thing in wrestling. Nobody knows how to close or separate or expand the distance. So we've closed the distance now to get as much out. So now the tension, now we're as close as we possibly can be without being, you know, overly close, without trying to, you know, without trying to milk it to the point that, you know, I happened to crawl all the way. Maybe we did. I don't know. You know, I didn't think so. Because if I crawl all the way to his feet, that doesn't make any sense. Why would I crawl to his feet? So he comes close. I come close. I get up. Holy fuck, the last guy expected. I still don't know whether I'm going to get an ass kicking. I still don't know what's going to happen. You know, I'm like, what the fuck? He could still want to, you know, he may have saved me from Punk, but maybe just to beat me up himself. You know what I mean? We have that big moment, get the reaction. I believe we hugged then. I think we made out. He tried to stick his tongue down my throat. Fucking homo. And I grabbed his balls. He fucking went for a reach around. He gave me a rusty trombone. I gave him a dirty Sanchez. And then I gave him the pirate. Fucking, I shot a load in his eye and stepped on his foot, so I went, argh. Anyway, that's on the special edition DVD. Oh, we have food. Good. Yeah, can you give me another bottle of water, Holmes, please? Hey, look at this guy. Come here. This guy looks like a young Johnny Fairplay. Come here, look at this kid. Got a Johnny Fairplay kind of thing going on. Look in the camera. See? The young, skinny, young Johnny Fairplay. All right, get off the camera, kid. Get on my TV time. Beat it. Give me a water, damn you. Anyway, so so we get that moment, but then that's not the end of it. What happens from there is, So now we've built to what appears to be, and you always want to close with your biggest moment. It's like I watch guys, they hit their finish on a guy for the post-match beatdown. They'll hit their finish, and they'll start kicking a guy. How does that make any sense? First of all, if you just hit your finish, the guy should be out cold, at least for a few seconds, right? So the guy should be out cold. You've just hit your biggest move to finish, your finish, on the guy. Now, when you follow it up with kicks, all you're doing is now the guy has to sell your kicks. Because if not, then they look like crap. So now you're saying, okay, so now you're ruining your own finish. The guy's not unconscious. The guy is, thank you. The guy's not unconscious because you start kicking him. He's got to sell your boots. So now you just pissed on your own finish. How stupid is that? You've just pissed on your own finish. When I lay a guy with the DDT on a post-match thing, with the Raven effect, he's not getting up. I tell him, stay there. Hold production up if you have to. Sell my finish like you mean it. And the guys will be like, well, I didn't sell it as long last time. I go, it's a drama. Maybe you took it, maybe it hit, you got more, caught more this time, That's what nobody else gets. They go, well, I didn't do it that time, I can't do it this time. Yes, you can. Because you could take one punch, sell it for 10 minutes if you really wanted to. But they go, well, I didn't sell the other punch for 10 minutes. Well, this one hit you harder. Everybody's been hit with punches before, at least I hope they have. Some hurt more than others. Everything, so it all depends how you sell it. It has nothing to do with what you've done before or what you're going to do after. Everything is on an individual basis. I've had matches where I've taken Dreamer hit me with the DDT, boom, and I found I've sold it for 20 minutes. He's hit me with it, and I've only sold it for 10 seconds. It all depends, and everyone looks different, and everyone affects you different. So once, like I'm saying, you always want to build to your biggest stuff. So we're not even done yet. We've just got as big a pop as we possibly can. They think we still have more to come. Punk bind. So now me and Dreamer hug. We make out. Rusty Trombone, Dirty Sanchez, and a pirate, and he's trying to escape. And you ever see Dodgeball?
Yeah.
The pirate. The guy's the pirate, and he's telling the other guy. He goes, "Where's Steve the pirate?" He goes, "Who's that?" And he goes, "The guy who wears like a pirate." He goes, "I don't know what you're talking about." He goes, "No, the guy with the bandana. He looks like a pirate." He goes, "I don't know who you're talking about." And then later on in the movie, Steve the pirate shows up. He goes, "Oh, look, it's Steve the pirate." I love that. That's the greatest movie ever. Dutch Dog, Dodge, Duck, and Dodge. That's the wrestling business right there. And hit him in the head with a wrench. Anyway, so we still have more. So now the people think it's over. But why settle for that? Let's get as much of this as we can. So now, as me and Dreamer are hugging, or whatever, making out or holding hands, or whatever the fuck we're doing, and he definitely wants me to, he's gay. Punk, I believe, tries to escape at this point. Now, see, here's the thing. Now, if Punk wasn't laid out, now, if Punk didn't know how to sell, which he does when he wants to, Punk laid there. Now, he could have, now, to me, I'm a big fan of carnage in the ring. I like dead bodies laying everywhere because it looks like violence. But sometimes you don't want a dead body in the ring. Sometimes you want it out of, because as long as they're in the ring, people still think they're involved. So sometimes I like people to roll out to the floor. I don't know if this was the case with this.
We tied him to the ropes.
What's that?
You guys tied him to the ropes.
But I'm saying, but before that, though, then he rolled out to the floor and we brought him back in, I believe, right?
No, I think Dreamer got him with the DDT.
Right.
So he was laid out from that.
But I'm saying, but did he stay laid out in the ring or did he roll out to the floor?
He was in the ring.
All right, well,
but he rolled out of the way, so you guys
right. Your thing. Well, what we should have done if we didn't, and I'm not sure Gabe's 100% right, but he probably is. What we should have done is when he took it, he should have, as me and Dreamer, as I'm doing my selling and nobody's paying attention to him, he should have rolled out to the floor and disappeared. Now he's out of sight, out of mind. And if we didn't do this, it's my gaffe. He should have rolled out, you don't do it right away because people are watching. You wait till me and Dreamer start, he starts to cut me loose, and people are watching him cut me loose, and they're going to see what's happening there. He can gradually roll his way out slowly so people don't remember about him. And now he lays on the ground. And this is the hardest part as a wrestler. People are going, get up, you're not hurt. And I've seen so many guys that they get wig out because 5 people that are right there in front of them are going, get up, and they're like, and they feel like they're they're pussies. But you're playing to a bigger crowd, the TV audience, you're playing to all the people in the building. Who gives a shit what 5 people are saying? And besides that, the only reason they're saying it is because you're right in front of them. Ignore them and stay unconscious. So if we didn't do it this way, we should have, but either way, it's pretty damn effective, but once again, getting the most out of it, Teaser rolls to the floor. Me and Dreamer hug. At that point, Punk should finally start to revive, which he did, but let's say we put him on the floor. Let's say he'd roll to the floor. Now, all of a sudden, because people have forgotten he's even involved in a match, now he revives. He starts to crawl into the ring, because he doesn't know what's going on. He just woke up because, now remember, if he's not that unconscious, if he's not that beat up, why would he roll back into the ring? So he has to be so beat up that he thinks everything's done, everything's over and done with. He thinks people are gone. He crawls himself into the ring. Oh, fuck, there's Raven and Dreamer. We grab him. We handcuffed him. But now we put him inside the ring because to put him outside is it's a much easier setup if I recall because we've already used the front of the ropes, the hard camera. So now we keep him in the ring because for the most part, you want your action in the ring so people can see it. So now we handcuff him or tape him or whatever he did to the ropes, put him in my pose in a crucifix, and now we pour his hair back and we pour beer down his throat because he's straight edge, he's never drank, and this is like torturing him. So babyface finally gets his big comeuppance, and so what looked like as big a spot as you can, it's him pouring beer down my throat, turns into Danny Doring showing up, which is that's the swerve pop. People go, that's all, and then boom, here comes Dreamer for the big pop, Dreamer for the save. Now we get the big emotional reunion, me and Dreamer, and we still have more to go. We get the beer down Punk's throat, and we leave him strung up there. Me and Dreamer we do the Fargo strut.
Plus, he also did the job and all that, and no one remembers it.
Oh yeah, I didn't remember that. Yeah, I did the job and all that. And that's also. But I'm saying, but that's how you get over. But that's what people go. Wins and losses do matter to an extent. Okay, if you just always lose, then yeah, they absolutely matter because you need to win. You need to win the majority of times to be considered a star. But after a certain point, you don't need to win every match or every scenario because most of the time, that's just a prelude to the drama. And that's what people also don't get is, sometimes the match is the drama, but when the business is done correctly, when this is done perfectly, if there was a way to do to me, the best way this business should be done is basically almost no wrestling at all on TV, on a TV show. All it is little, small matches, angles, feuds, gaga. So that when you finally want to pay to see the match, you have to either go to the house show or the pay-per-view. Why give them all the wrestling for free? And I mean, this isn't a perfect world, you know what I mean? But have to have really clever bookers or really over characters. I mean, and you have to have some wrestling because it's a wrestling show. But what I'm saying is you don't have to have 20, 30-minute matches. You don't have to give away big matches. You give away pieces of matches. You have tag matches. You have six-mans. You have stuff that keeps the characters in the feud together. You have angles. You have vignettes. You have packages. But to see the actual matches, because that's what, I mean, like the Thriller in Manila, Frazier and Ali. They didn't have a bunch of boxing matches to build up to a boxing match. I mean, well, they had the first two, but I'm saying, but you didn't need before the first one, let's say. Or the Rumble in the Jungle. Ali and Foreman didn't wrestle. They didn't box a million times. Ali got over beating his guys. Foreman got over beating his guys. So when they finally come together, they both cut a bunch of promos. There's a lot of gaga. So you finally pay to see the big match. And that's how you draw money. So if you have your main eventers fighting your main eventers, well, you're killing your money drawing matches. So there is no need to do that. Put them in tags. That way you can combine them. This will all be in my booking class, too. We'll just turn this one into the booking class.
You want to just turn this into angles and stuff?
Yes, this will just turning into angles.
We are now doing Secrets of the Ring Volume 5 on
This has now become angles and booking instead of Raven shoot interview. Yeah. We've done a swerve in the middle. But leave all the stuff at the beginning so people get it. Like they're like, hey, wait a minute, this is the wrong DVD. Actually, I'm going to take a hiatus now while I eat my sushi, and we'll be back. Jeff Garland's not funny. I don't care what anybody says. Jeff Garland is. Are we on?
Yeah.
Jeff Garland is not funny. He's not even remotely funny. The Larry David show. That just show. That's like a worker's show. You know what I mean? Like that's like Greg Valentine was a worker's worker. All the boys thought he was brilliant, and a lot of the fans didn't see what he did. Because they didn't get the subtlety and the nuance. And Larry David's kind of the same thing. Like Canyon loves it. And whether he's gay or not, doesn't. I just had to throw that in. Anyway, he's a damn good kisser. What the hell? Anyway.
All right, back to angles.
But let me just say with the Larry David thing, but it doesn't, he's like, oh, it's a funny show. It's not, I never laughed out loud at it, but it's brilliantly done, but that doesn't make it, it's kind of like, it's kind of like the high spot matches. I mean, they're really brilliantly done, but that doesn't mean they're, they're not doing their job. Just like, I mean, like Larry David actually does good ratings and stuff, but I mean, that's just my taste, but just for an example, but, now, people say, oh, it's a really good show, it's really clever. Yeah, I have no problem. But for people to say it's laugh out loud funny when even my friends don't laugh out loud at it, like they'll be going, oh, this is laugh out loud funny, and then the whole episode they won't laugh. I'm like, that's, whatever. So back to the,
can you talk about the closing space?
Yeah, let me just finish where we were before we finishing up with, something about, it was after the Dreamer thing. There was one other thing I think involved in that plot line.
There's the big finale where you poured the beer on.
I poured the beer down on his throat, and I don't remember. Anyway, all right. closing space and opening up space or whatever. All right, this is a huge problem. Is people don't do this. It's like, you know, and part of the problem, I mean, not part of the problem, but what makes it even harder is in the WCW old school rings, they were so small. I hated that ring. WWF had it right. They had the big ring. TNA has a big ring because it has 6 sides. But you know, so it's much easier to have closed and open space there. But first you have to know you're doing it, but you really have to know how to do it in a smaller ring. All right, so there are times when, all right, I mean, how do I get into this? All right, let's say that, all right, let me start with a basic and I'll see if I can expand on it. Okay, let's say you give somebody an arm drag. All right. Well, first of all, when you give somebody an arm drag,
do you mind an audience for this? Because all the students watch.
Yeah, I don't care. All right, I'll cut back to what I was just saying before. But while Gabe goes find some students to ooh and ah at my brilliance, I'll talk about psychology. Psychology is the most important thing in the world. That's what everybody. That's how you manipulate a crowd. That's how you emotionally get people involved. And wrestling, somebody once go to me, man, wrestling psychology is just like human psychology. Duh, it's the exact same thing. Psychology is worldwide. They've actually done studies. And I don't know if I've talked about this before, let me know. They've actually done studies where they took this, there are actually so many expressions you can make with your face. I read this book, I believe it's called Blink. It's a New York Times bestseller. And in the book, they're talking about how, you know, basically in your first reaction, you get more, you learn more about a person in that first instant blink than you will, and, you know, looking at it, you know, the more you learn about them. But anyway, so one of the studies that was done was this guy he studied the human face and how many muscles and whatever, and apparently there's like 237 different facial expressions you could possibly make or something, like using all the different muscles and different combinations, or I forget, some really big number. And so there's so many combinations. It just packing kids. Yeah. Anyway, so there's so many faces you can make. So this guy studies them and studies them and studies them. And then, you know, and apparently, so there was a big argument, discussion, whether, you know, it's worldwide, you know, whether people think the same thing worldwide. Like, you know, people always go, oh, in Japan, that won't get over. Well, yeah, well, because everything gets over, because human psychology is the same. And this is really fascinating. So this guy studied all the facial expressions. And he studied them so he knew what each one meant: disgust, happiness, joy, you know, and subtler emotions, you know, bigger emotions, more subtle, you know, every range, the gamut, you know, and what these, you know, could possibly mean. So then these people that thought there was more to that, or, you know, that people were different around the world, got these hey, you open your candy bar, you can make a little noise, it's okay. There you go, attaboy. Anyway, is that, what kind of candy bar is that?
Attaboy.
Anyway, what flavor? Let me see that. Give me that. No, the bar, the wrapper. Dum-dum. Let me see this. I can't eat peanuts. I'm allergic to them. Anyway, he tried to kill me. Son of a bitch. So they did this so that they get these people. So this guy goes to this tribe, some tribe in like the middle of goddamn nowhere, like the Aborigines of Buttfuckville or whatever. Anyway, so he goes to this middle of nowhere tribe, finds some tribe, and on this island, there's two different tribes, and one was like, one of the tribes was a peaceful, kind, you know, really, you know, domesticated, peaceful tribe. You know, whatever. I'm trying to think of some accolades, but just these are really good people. And the other tribe on this island, they were like, they sodomized their male young. They were brutal. They were cannibals. They were this, that, and the other. And so these people filmed both tribes. And then they took the film and they cut to only the heads, and then they cut it down to pictures and only used the different facial expressions of the two people and showed them a wide range of expressions from both people. So the guy who had studied all these facial expressions goes, oh, these people are very nice, they're kind, they're domesticated. These people sodomized their male young and they're cannibals. And he was able to do it just by facial expressions, which proves my point that around the world, psychology is the same. People have this, you know, happiness is happiness, joy is joy, sadness is sadness. The same facial expressions apply, which is why facial expressions are so important in a business, because the people can't feel it. They can only see it. So if you're facially not acting like you're in pain or you're in joy or you're happy, you know, if you're just high spots, next spot, people don't know what's going on. That's why Robert De Niro is such a great actor, because the secret to acting, which is what we do in a way. We were part actors, we're part directors, part choreographers, part stuntmen. But when you act, the best actors are the ones who react. You know, instead of just like you read your lines and I read my lines, you read your lines and I react to it before I read my own. You know, so like if you say, you know, that the baby is dead, and I'm like, you know, or whatever. I mean, you know, it doesn't, not over the top, but what I'm saying is just to illustrate a point. You know, the people who have always something going on in their head, even when nothing is going on, those are the interesting people to watch. Those are the actors you can't take your eyes off of because you see the gears turning. Dustin Hoffman or Al Pacino, you see the gears are always turning. You see they're thinking. You don't know what they're thinking about, or you do know it sometimes. But that's what makes them fascinating because there's something always going on. They're not just blankly waiting for their next, you know, what their next line is. And that's the problem with high spot guys is they're so busy thinking about the next spot that they're not reacting to what happened. Instead of taking that slam and going, you know, and feeding up for the next thing, they take the slam, they feed right up, they take the next bump, woo, feed right up, next bump. Okay, what do I take next? Take that, take this, take that. As opposed to just that half a second, that quarter second where you're like, you take this like, and then you feed into the next thing. That little bit changes the dynamic so much. So, the, I don't know, I get back to where I was talking about. I don't want a tangent. How'd this thing...
Closing the distance.
No, but right after that...
you said psychology. That's what I want to go get the students. So
yeah, no, you're talking about psychology. That's right. So psychology. So psychology, I mean, so I would recommend anybody study psychology because that's what we do. We're trying to use psychology to manipulate the audience. So psychology plays across the board. I mean, if somebody's egotistical, they're insecure. It's a one-to-one relationship. It's not... Psychology isn't considered, you know, a theory. It's a science. You know, it's not just something that people are dabbling in. I mean, you know, when you see somebody who's egotistical, they are insecure. There is no other reason. We're just not designed that way. When somebody, which is why, and the things we hate most in other people are usually the things we hate most about ourselves, or we're afraid we have, or we're afraid that that's who we are. And that's why, if you know your audience, if you know what people, you know, most of the audience is probably hard work, and it's really easy to manipulate a crowd when you understand the process of what goes on in psychology, of what goes on in people's heads subconsciously. Because then you can manipulate them much more easy, and that's the whole object of this, and that's how you get your mileage out of stuff. So, you know, it's I mean, they've done studies. They've done studies that prove that you can look at a nuclear family, watch a baby be born, and within the first 3 years, you can tell exactly what kind of person he's going to marry, just because how he interacts with people and how his parents are. Because when you're born, everybody's born like pretty much perfect, except for, you know, the people with chemical imbalances, and you learn your cues from your environment, from who you're, you know, unless you have some genetic disorders or whatever, but you learn your cues from who you're around. So if your parents behave a certain way, you're going to emulate it. My dad was he was like Don Rickles. He always insulted me, but he was really funny. So, you know, I said, he must, he never said he loved me, but I knew he did because he's my dad. But he always insulted me. He was always funny. And so I insulted my friends for years, and I thought it was funny. You know, I didn't understand why people got mad. Like, how can they be offended? You know, my dad loves me. You know, I must care about you if I'm making fun of you. You know, but that's how we learn our cues from. That's how we behave. And the more you understand this, the more easy it is to reach new heights in this business, to manipulate, to get the most out of each storyline and program, to get the most out of each individual thing. It's like, I love Chris Daniels, a really close friend of mine. And Daniels will never be a true heel because he's just too nice a guy. He does not want people to hate him. I mean, he really doesn't. Like, he is such a nice, likable guy and wants to be liked that unless something changes for whatever, he will never, ever be as good a heel as he will as a babyface, because he doesn't, on some level, he doesn't want people to hate him. That's just who he is. Me, I was hated by people for years. I got accustomed to it, so to me, it's easier to have people hate me, because at least if I'm provoking them to hate me, then it's because of me. It's not just that they dislike me because I'm just some mutant freak or whatever. So that's why certain people are better heels. Stevie Richards, a phenomenal heel. You look at him, you just want to punch him in the face. I love Stevie, but he's that great heel. Like, you look at him, you just want to hit him as hard as you can. You know, and that's like the biggest compliment I could pay. DDP. That's why he's always a better heel, because you want to punch him in the face. You know what I mean? Certain people are baby faces. Ricky Morton, and if you meet him, he's like the nicest guy, like, where you just want to be his friend. You know what I mean? Like, that's what you want. Like, if you're a heel, if you're a baby face, you want to be a guy that every guy wants to hang out with and every girl wants to fuck. That's who you should be. That's if you're a baby face, that's what you should aspire to. The guys are like Sandman. Oh, you know, of course, women didn't want to fuck him, but, you know, every guy wanted to hang out with the Sandman. He was such a great character that, you know, where guys like, you know, where Cena, like, guys boom. From what I understand, I haven't watched their show, I haven't watched Gabe's show, I don't watch any wrestling anymore, and hopefully I will again soon. But But apparently Cena gets booed a lot by the guys because they think he's either too pretty, or they don't think he's talented enough, or they don't see him. He's not a guy that they want to hang out with. The women want to fuck him, and the kids want to, hey, he's cool, but that's why he's alienated a part of the audience. The reason Flair always turns babyface is because, well, back in the day, women wanted to sleep with him, but for the most part, wrestling's a male audience. So basically, guys wanted to hang out with him. They wanted to go and party with the Nature Boy. Who wouldn't? That's why people wanted to hang out with Nash. That's why people want to hang out with Scott Hall. That's why people become babyfaces. The Road Warriors were the toughest guys in the block. How do you hate somebody who's that tough and kicks ass? I mean, this psychology is basic human psychology, but that's how it applies to wrestling. So, like my character, Raven, when he started out, he was a whiny, nobody likes somebody who whines. Nobody, what about me, whatever. Raven? Nobody likes any, people hate that. They can't stand that, partly because they're afraid that that's who they are, and partly because it's a really disgusting trait. It's not a trait people are proud to have, so it's much easier to hate that. A guy like the Sandman who never complains, never bitches, smokes a cigarette, drinks a beer, and hits you in the head with a cane. I want to hang out with him, That's fucking cool. And so that's how characters and stories are developed. And now, getting what? Right, so I don't know where this is tying up to, but I think I tied up enough. But that's why psychology is so important. Psychology is the most important thing. People always are ring psychology. Well, that's what psychology is. That's what you need to learn. That's the most important thing. And like I was talking before, that's how we got the most out of the mileage with me, Punk, and Dreamer, because we played on the psychology. Raven's a recovering addict. We don't want to put beer in, we've put beer in his mouth. Oh, fuck, that's sympathy. Dreamer making a save, Dreamer and Raven so much history, they're going to fight. I mean, there was so much involved. We played on so many emotions. We tugged on their heartstrings back and forth. The drama, and that's what people don't do. If there's no drama, if you're not getting the people emotionally involved, you're not doing your job. Now, you can do all the high spots in the world, and people are like, woo, that's cool. You know what I mean? But it's not drawing money unless the characters are so above and beyond, they stand out in such a way, or they do things, for the most part, I mean, if you look at history, most of the guys who drew money weren't good workers by today's worker standards by being 4-star matches. I mean, Dusty, Duggan, Junkyard Dog, the list is endless. You know what I mean? But because that's not the most important thing. The most important thing is psychology, building a character, getting people, to love you or hate you. And if they just like you or dislike you, it's not enough because they don't have that emotional connection. Because getting someone to part with money to buy a ticket is much different than it is to get somebody to watch it on TV. And that's why the high spot guys are great. They're great television. Boo, 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 boo. But you're not going to go, you know what? I got to pay $50 to see this guy do a bunch of high spots. It's just, whereas if you're emotionally involved, it's like, like George Foreman and Ali. Man, fucking Ali, he's the greatest, but fucking Foreman's a wrecking machine. And you were emotionally involved. Fuck, I want to see Foreman kick that fucking Ali's fucking that blabbermouth's ass, or I want to see him beat that motherfucker Foreman half to death. You know what I mean? Whatever it is, you have to be emotionally involved to want to part with enough money to pay for a ticket. That's why we have casual fans that watch TV, and we have the smaller audience that pays money to go to the matches. Unless the product becomes super hot like Nitro did, where people are just going to pay anyway because the show's so hot and regardless. But that's not usually how the business is. So we have to build stars and we have to get people involved on an emotional level. And to do that, you have to psychologically appeal to them or hate them. Or you have to make them love you or hate you. If they like you or dislike you, they're not going to spend the money. And that's also the problem with promos. Guys don't cut money drawing promos. They cut promos that entertain you. They cut promos that are cute. They're funny. But when you cut a money promo, you cut a promo where you want to see where the babyface is like, I'm going to beat the fuck out of him. I'm getting revenge. And you got to make the people say, oh, god damn, I got to see him fucking get some revenge. And the heel's got to cut a promo where he's got to piss you off in such a way that you're like, you know what, I'm paying to see him get his ass kicked. And if you're not doing either, you're not doing your job. And that's the business has lost out on that because what happened was there was so much TV time to fill 2 hours that they started putting in a lot of character development stuff, which is great. But what happened was guys started getting away from money drawn promos. They would see promos like, say, I don't want to burn anybody. I've burned enough people in my career. But, they would see guys like, well, I'll just give you an example, like Edge and Christian back in the day. They would cut these funny promos, you know what I mean? They were cool. And that's great TV. It's not going to make you want to pay to see them. I don't know. I haven't seen Edge's stuff since, so I don't know. And I haven't really seen Christian's stuff because I've been home. So I can't tell you if they've changed now that they're in different positions. But back then they cut an entertaining promo, very entertaining, but not a money-drawing promo. But that also wasn't their place in the card. Their place was to be entertaining, was to be dressing to the main event. Their idea was to keep people interested in the show, to build new characters, to develop for potentially the future, and to keep the show moving. In that spot, but the guys on top were, and what's happened is the business has been, people getting into the business saw, hey, Edge and Christian cut cool stuff, I want to be like them, which is nothing wrong with that. And so they emulated them, but they didn't understand that that's not a money position, so they didn't learn, so they became entertaining characters. So tying back into Punk, I don't know, I haven't seen enough of Punk's promos, but I've seen, back then, his promos were entertaining, but as a heel he was funny. So how do you hate a guy who's funny? And he didn't make me want to pay to see him get his ass kicked, and I didn't love him because he was a heel, so he wasn't doing his job. Now he may be cutting great promos that I have no idea because I haven't seen him. Just as I'm talking a couple years ago, but just to tie back into earlier. And that's the other thing with like the Seinfeld episodes. You ever see on Seinfeld, the show would start out, have a bunch of disparate elements, and at the end it would tie it all together. That's how wrestling is too. You wanted to tie your whole storyline together. Which brings me to my favorite ending of a show, angles, whatever. And if I've already covered this, just let me know. But when I was a kid, we used to, actually when I was in college, we used to watch, on Thursday night, in my fraternity house, we used to, we drunk every Thursday night. Well, actually, we got drunk every night, but that's beside the point. But on Thursday nights, I think 8 o'clock was like, what was it, the Cosbys, like 8:30 was Family Ties, 9 o'clock was Cheers, 9:30 was Night Court, and then at 10 o'clock we used to get, because I went to University of Delaware, we used to get from Vineland, New Jersey to UWF, which was the best show ever made until Raw and Nitro came along. Because the storylines were so brilliant. It was all, first of all, it was done in a house show. Like, it was a house show TV. It wasn't like in a little studio like old wrestling used to be. Big arena in Tulsa. And the booker, I think it was Ken Mantell, I don't know. Which is a brilliant booker. The storylines were phenomenal. He had a lot of intriguing characters. And most of the guys that were there ended up, the guys that were the top guys, the big names there ended up becoming big stars in the business. But the favorite thing I've ever seen, and I think I've talked about this before, but maybe not.
I don't think so.
The closing a show is very important, because you want to have people tune in next week. This is as much a part of angles, booking, and storyline, and all that is if you have a show that ends kind of crap, well, the people have it's less inclined to say, oh, I got to tune in next week. If you have an ending of a show that's holy crap, it's either exciting or dramatic, or something happens, we don't know the final outcome, you're like, fuck, I gotta tune in next week, And the greatest ending to a show I ever saw was, they did a thing, and somehow they stripped the belt of the one-man gang, I think. No, wait, I'm sorry. They stripped the belt off of Gordy, the world title, which, normally stripping a belt off somebody is really, really the audience craps on it, but for whatever reason, it didn't, because of the scenario and whatever happened, I forget, it made perfect sense. I think they broke his arm, or something. They broke Gordy's arm, or whatever. And I don't even remember how the basics. All I remember is the end of the show. And what happened is the belt was given to the gang, to the one-man gang, who was over like a motherfucker back then. Like all you people remember is Akeem and stuff. But he could fucking work, back in the day, because he didn't do much. But what he did really well. His timing was impeccable. He knew how to rock like a big man because, a lot of big guys, they get hit, nothing happens, they fall down. You have to build to the fall down. It's like boom, boom, blah, boo, and down you go. So so somehow the gang had the belt, but the Freebirds were pissed, and Gordy was especially pissed, and Jim Cornette, Jim Ross kept saying throughout the show, my God, if we got time, we're gonna have the cage match for the world title between the one-man gang and Hacksaw Jim Duggan. And Duggan was like the lousy impression, but Duggan was like the top babyface in the company, and he was over like a motherfucker. Just so charismatic, you know what I mean? And it was a huge fucking money draw, and so the gang gets into the cage, and Ross kept saying, we're going to show you as much if we got time. We're like, oh, please have time. Because back then you didn't see world title matches on TV. You didn't see, they were brilliant. They never truly gave anything away. They would give you a mid-card, like matches against, stars. Because back then you didn't have, like now on TV, stars always fight stars. But back then the stars never fought each other. Because that's how you get people to pay for the house show. You have stars beating jabronis, stars beating jabronis, stars beating jabronis, and then you have star A and star B, who they both beat jabronis. Wonder who would win between them, and that's how you had a drama. Because still, the great thing about pro wrestling is even though the outcome is predetermined, nobody knows who's going to win. In fact, I think that's what Archie told Meathead. Meathead goes, how can you like that? It's fake. He goes, they may know. Archie goes, they may know who wins. He goes, but I don't. And it's true. As long as the fans don't know who's going to win, like. Like when my buddies are going over matches, I don't want to know if I'm going to watch their match. I don't want to know who's going over because it ruins. I want to enjoy it. If I already know who's going over, it kind of ruins it for me. So if I can, so they would have guys like mid card guys fighting other mid card guys, which you didn't have back then. But they never gave away your main events because even with this, even though this is the main event, the top baby face against the top heel, they never gave it. It was basically without feeling like it. They gave you nothing. They gave you so much that you thought you got a lot, but they really gave you nothing, and that's the art of working. You make people think they're getting all of this, and what you're really giving them is that, and then you keep doling out a little more. They keep thinking they're getting more and more, and then finally you build for the big one, and then you finally give it to them. But if you give it to them right away, then what do you got left to give them? It's like if you if somebody gives you all your Christmas presents before Christmas, you got nothing left to open. Christmas, who gives a crap? I already got all my presents. You know what I mean? I'm sorry, it's a religious holiday. People celebrate it for religion. So you still have the religious aspect of it. Because everybody celebrates it for religion. When my parents were Jewish, we still celebrated Christmas. 8 days of toys. I'd rather get like a big mountain of trees, mountain of toys under the tree. Anyway, and it was much more dramatic. It's like 8 days of toys. You get one here, one there. Whereas you get you build up for that one big thing. I mean, that's why Christmas is so over. Because you build up to one day of big toy, your birthday. You build up to one day of getting a whole ass load of stuff. You know what I mean? And you could, let's say maybe you could throughout the year you get a bunch of stuff that equals out to that, but it doesn't have the same drama. Because it's built for the one day, and it's psychology. And it's great marketing whenever it gets started, the whole marketing for Christmas, because, companies make a fortune off of that. How it became co-opted as a holiday, you know what I mean? I mean, as a toy gimmick instead of a religious thing. Anyway, so end of the show. So it's one-man gang. He's in the cage. Skandar Akbar and Devastation Incorporated. They're the top heels. So they're all around ringside because their guy, the one-man gang, gets in the ring with the world title. So the Freebirds are pissed, so they come out and they start a big brawl because Gordy wants his belt in his arms. I think they broke his arm because I think the Freebirds were going to break Dr. Death's arm. It's pretty cool or something like that. So I think Buddy Roberts was coming off the top and Hayes was holding Steve Williams' arm under the bottom rope, and so Williams is like that. But at the last second, Williams pulled the other way, so Gordy's arm went in, and however he did pull Gordy, it's like they're going to kill Williams' arm. He pulls this way. Gordy gets his arm broke by his own guy, I think, or something like that. Something to that effect. Anyway, the Freebirds are pissed. Here they come. Devastation Incorporated, which was Skandar Akbar, Bad Leroy Brown, Cowboy Scott, or Bill Irwin, Cowboy Bill Irwin. And they were all over characters. Bad Leroy Brown was this big, black, badass motherfucker who came out the first guy to come out to ring music, I think, before the Freebirds did. Scott Irwin, Cowboys, Bill Irwin was a hell of a fucking worker back then. And over too, he had this cool ass look, like not just your generic cowboy look. A lot of guys did. I mean, he had like a whole cool look. I mean, it's all part of the package, and he was a good worker too. Skandar Akbar was like this Arab, guy who was a manager. Then the Freebirds are just awesome. I mean, Michael Hayes is who I wanted to be when I started my career. And it's kind of ironic that Michael Hayes went from like the ultimate rebel, the baddest motherfucker, never listened to anybody, walked out on more companies or whatever, and now he's like completely corporate, in his Cavalieri, his 1980s Cavalieri pants, or Cavarici, whatever they are, a corporate drone, you know what I mean? It's kind of ironic how the world is flip-flopped. But it's like a Michael Hayes bizarro world. Anyway, now he's like the office guy. Anyway, so the Freebirds come out, so they start fighting with Devastation Incorporated. The babyfaces aren't even out yet. So now Duggan's got to get to the ring. And I don't know if a couple other babyfaces accompany him, like Terry Taylor or whatever, but that turns into an even bigger brawl because Duggan's trying to get to the ring. So now you have the Freebirds and Devastation. Everybody's brawling, and the one-man gang's in the ring. He's ready to fight, and he's 450 pounds. And his finish was called the 747, which I always thought was a pretty cool name, you know what I mean? Like, because back then that was like the huge jet, that, now, I mean, it was much bigger, but back then, like a 747 was a pretty big deal. And his deal was he would just run across the ring and just jump up and give you a splash, but he was so big and heavy, it looked like it killed you. And the way he landed, he wasn't landing like up like this, which is also dumb to land like that because you snap your wrist, you always want to land on your forearms. And so it looked like he squished the guy. And if he did it, and this is the other thing, is guys sold it like they were hurt. You can do the dumbest thing, but if somebody sells it like they're hurt, it gets over. That's the problem is, guys, people think, wow, that's not going to hurt. Well, it doesn't matter if you make the people believe it hurts. It hurts. That's all it is. It's that simple. So, and if he came off the second rope with the 747, 500 pounds, you went to the hospital. You know, and that was then only like a couple guys had, taken the 747 off the second rope, and they went to the hospital. So we were, and so if you've been watching for weeks, you know that. So, but not that this is in your head right now, but this is just backstory. So, Devastation Incorporated, bam, bam, bam. The Freebirds, bam, bam. They're all fighting. Somehow Duggan gets sliced. He gets the color. He gets tossed into the ring. So he's already in a cell because he's trying to get to the ring to his match, and he gets beat up by the Birds and the Devastation Incorporated. And here's storytelling. So as soon as he gets thrown into the cage, the brawl goes all the way to the back. Because now if the brawl's at ringside, it's taken away from your cage match, right? You don't want it there. So the big brawl, boom, 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 you start to brawl at ringside so everybody sees it. Boom, boom, boom. All of a sudden Duggan gets sauced, he gets dumped into the ring, and the brawl just makes a right turn and heads for the back. But once, and here's the thing is, once they're out of camera shot, you never think about them again. Because, and people are always like, guys in the business are always like, I got to look strong. Once the camera's not on you, no one remembers you're there. That's the great thing. Like, you can get, you can be in a 20-minute match. Let's say you're in a 20-minute tag match, and in the first minute, somebody knocks me in the head. I take a bump to the floor. If you don't see me laying on the ground, if they never take a shot at me, you're not going to go, hey, wait a minute, where's Raven? He's not really hurt. He only took one shot. You know what I mean? And if they do cut to me, and I'm like, oh fuck, he really is hurt. You know what I mean? They go back to the ring. Leave me alone. Don't worry about me. I'm out of sight. I'm out of mind. Now 19 minutes in, the guy's getting his ass kicked. Finally, he crawls over to make the tag to me. And now I pop up out of nowhere and make the tag. Holy crap, we forgot Raven was even involved. That's drama. Once out of sight, out of mind. So first of all, for guys watching, if the camera's not on you, it does not matter what those 4 or 5 people right by you say, get up, you're a pussy. You've been there for 15 minutes. Ignore them. They're not part of the show. They're just fans. Obviously, they're excited about this, or they want you to get back into it. But, there's a storyline, there's a reason. But, so out of sight, out of mind first thing. It's like guys be like, well, how do I get out of this thing? Fuck, if you guys beat me up, boom, 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 just roll to the floor and disappear. No one's going to go, hey, where did that guy go that got beat up earlier? Because if me and Gabe are having a big brawl, right? And let's say he comes running out. What's your name? Smash. Let's say Smash. Smash. Let's say Smash comes running out. I drop Smash. Smash is kind of an egomaniac. Smash is like, hey, what do I do once I roll out? Just go to the back. People are going to go in the middle of the brawl. Me and Gabe are going out and go, hey, where'd that Smash guy go? No. Once he's been hit, knocked out to the floor, people assume he's done. That's just, people assume that because that's what 90% of the time happens. So, and when the guy, and let's say he doesn't disappear. Let's say he stays there and he sells, and the 5 fans right by him are going, get up, Smash, get up. And he's just ignoring them like he should. And then finally he pops back in. People are going to think, hey, oh my God, boom, it's going to be exciting that he just showed up because he was out of sight, out of mind, because 90% of the time he would have went to the back. This time he didn't, so he has to lay there and sell. Now if he doesn't sell and he's just waiting for a spot, this is what happens. Like, you ever see in a match where there's a tag match and one guy gets bumped and when the guy hits his finish, 1, 2, but you see the other guy in the ring, you know he's going to make the save. Because you see him there.
I hate that.
Yeah, you see him. So I try never to be in the ring when, if I know I got to make a save out of nowhere that's supposed to be a false finish, and a false finish isn't a 2 count. A false finish is when it looks like it's the finish. People go 1, 2, that's a false finish. Guys go, hey, we'll put 2 false finishes in. It's not a false finish if you just hit a move and the ref goes 1, 2, and nobody thinks it's the finish. It's not a false finish. It's a 2 count. So that's why, like in a big deal like that, I try and be selling. So you don't expect me to get up, or I try to be out of the picture on the ground below ring height, which is below camera level. Unless you're in front of the hard camera. Even then, as long as you're below the ring, height-wise, you can always be peering over kind of on a half cell, leaning to get back against the guard. As long as you're out of sight, people, aren't going to expect you to make the save. And I see a lot of guys that are in the ring on the other side brawling with somebody else, and you're like, and you can see in their face they're waiting for the 2 count to run over. You should be completely indisposed, completely out of your way, completely indisposed, or doing something, or selling at the last second, and dive and shove or whatever. You don't just, wait, 1, 2, run over and kick the guy. Because then no one's going to, because they see you standing there, they know you're going to break it up.
It kills every falsy in tag matches.
Absolutely. Absolutely it does. And guys don't understand why they don't get the pop. But the worst part is they think they do get the pop. Because they get some kind of pop, because you're still going to get a little bit. And they go, oh yeah, did you hear? Well, they're not listening to the crowd because I was wrestling somebody the other, I don't want to say who, he's a friend of mine. We did a spot at TNA, and the whole audience basically is on one side. And we did a spot by the hard camera side, And I really thought I was going to get a good pop, but it didn't because it wasn't done well. I think they were splitting my legs on the post and they're going to nut me. And they didn't get, instead of going all the way in with my knees and then pulling so I get the illusion of like I'm really being pulled and actually pulling me some and sliding my nuts into the post a little bit, you know, so you get that whole woof, you know what I mean? They didn't get the whole thing behind it. And the people didn't pop, but the people right in front of it, of course, they popped because it's right in front of them. And I was going back, I was like, that's the only thing that really didn't get a pop in a match. And like, what, are you kidding me? He goes, they got a big pop. You know, I'm like, no, the 8 people here, but the whole building didn't make any noise. I go, you have to listen to the whole crowd. It's the most important, well, not the most important thing, but it's one of the most important things. So, anyway, so Devastate, phone, hang on a second. Let me see. It's this end idiot. Yo, idiot, what are you doing? Listen, I'm making another DVD. I don't have time to talk to you. You're an idiot-faced baboon head. I don't know. I'll give you a call later. You going out tonight? You going out tonight? I'm doing a DVD. Shut up. All right. Yeah, after that last DVD we did with him, and he kept taking the phone calls and making me stay for 16 hours. So Devastation Incorporated, Freebirds, boom, everybody fucks off to the back. Out of sight, out of mind. Fucking Duggan's got the sauce. And Jim Ross keeps saying, my God, we're going to stay with this as long as we got time. He was so brilliant. I mean, he was so phenomenal. He had so much, I think he became much more cynical about the business later, but he had that youthful, you know, we all were much less cynical when we first got into business. He'd been in for a while, but not like, you know, the length he has now, but so brilliant, so much passion. So, I mean, because to me, okay, if he doesn't care what's happening, why should I? You know what I mean? So, like, I was actually watching Lucha Libre the other day. I was at a hotel in LA, and I was flipping channels, and Lucha Libre came on. I'm like, I'll watch a couple minutes. And I didn't understand a word the commentator said, but man, I was excited, because he's going, oh, blah, 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 and Lucha Libre! And the guy's screaming, and like, oh my God, this is hot. I don't even know what he's talking about. But just the amount of passion and emotion in his voice made it dramatic. And you know, my buddy were joking. You can imagine if the guy was really bad, though. He's just like, oh my God, did you see that? Look, he threw a punch. You know, he's like, he threw a punch! You know, it's like, you know, it could be really terrible, but it sounds phenomenal because there's so much passion in it. So Jim Ross is going crazy. We're going to stay with this if we got time. Duggan's just getting beat up. Once again, now Duggan's the tough baby face, right? And once he got the sauce and they rolled him into the ring, he didn't try and make a comeback in a rally. He stayed there in the cell. He's a baby face. Sell and make a fiery comeback. And this is the build where they're going. So he's selling. And Duggan, I mean, in one-man gang, just whoo, boom, just pound, whoo, bam, and he's pounding them. But they didn't need to make it long because, remember, this is an angle. It's not, you know, they're not giving away the match. Because why would they give away the match? Because they need to sell that on TV. So, I mean, I'm sorry, they need to make people pay for the house show. So why give away the match for free? However, they're giving you enough of this so that you're going to want to pay to see even more without ever giving a thing away. So what finally happens is Jim Ross is going, my God, we're almost out of time. And I remember this as if it was yesterday. And Duggan's laying on the ground, and all of a sudden the one-man gang backs up to the corner, and he sticks one foot on the rope, sticks another. Hey, my God, he's going for the 747 off the second rope. And from watching the show for weeks to week, you know that the 747 off the second rope puts the guy in the hospital. This is the hot baby face, the hottest baby face in the company. The top heel is about to put him, climbs up, and and this is the art of working. This is drama. Most guys now just climb right up, whoop, whoop, you know, and make it look easy. Except you know what? There's time when you're beat up in a match. If you do it that easy, then how hurt could you be? First of all, like I hate when a guy 15 minutes into the match does an up and over. If you're that beat up at that point, are you really thinking up and over? You know, you're thinking use as little, get as much out of each little thing you're going to do because you should be pretty beat up after 15, 20 minutes. You know, are you going to spring to the top rope? Well, you can because it looks cool, except that how hurt could you be? Wouldn't it be more dramatic if you fucking climb your way up, you know what I mean? Maybe 2/3 of the way. God damn, I'm fucking hurt, you know, now if you're 500 pounds like a one-man gang, he took his time. It was brilliant. What? I mean, this to me is working. Ooh, 1 foot, and the rope sags. Boom, the rope sags. You're like, holy, this is one big motherfucker, you know what I mean? And he straightens up. Ooh, hits his fucking gimmick, leaps off, show in the dark. So you have no idea if he landed or not. And the best part was I think there was a trailer of music. I don't think I'm wrong about this, but I could be wrong about this. I gotta just, my memory could be slightly wrong. But I believe there was like a bed of music playing in like the last 20 seconds of the show, so you knew that the last 20 seconds was coming, which was great because then you're like, oh my God, the show's about to end now. Because even though Jim Ross is saying it's going to end soon, you don't know when. Now you hear the music. You're like, oh fuck, it's going to end. Oh fuck, what's going to happen? The one-man gang. And halfway between he leaps off. There's Duggan. We have no idea if he moved, not anything. And the show went to black. I was like, no! As a fan, I'm like, no, what happened? I got to tune in next week. And that's drama. And that's booking. That's an angle. I mean, so now they've given nothing away. Have given absolutely nothing away because we didn't see the title match. We didn't see any of it. In fact, we didn't even see a fair contest because Duggan was gaffed. Got color right off the get-go and was thrown into the cage, and he never even had a chance. So if you're a fan, you're going, you didn't see any match. All you saw was Duggan was the one-man gang throw 10, maybe 5, 6, 10 punches at the most and go for his finish. So we saw no match at all. So they didn't give away anything. What they did was they made you think you saw part of a world title match that you really didn't see because it really wasn't. I mean, it was, but you really didn't see anything. And then now you're going to pay now. Believe me, if the show would have been in Philly, if I was living in Delaware or Delaware, Philly, if they would have been wrestling that night anywhere within 100 miles, I would have been in my car driving there. But they were always in Tulsa or somewhere. But and that's the thing. That's the kind of thing where you're like, holy crap, that's drama. And what makes me laugh is Vince McMahon never liked to end the show that way, and he never would, because I used to be an associate producer for him, and he would never end the show that way, because he goes, well, in a real sporting contest, you wouldn't cut away. Yeah, this is wrestling, though. You know what I mean? It's not a real sporting contest, and to be honest, you can't stay for interminably, you know what I mean? Obviously you can, and they go over a few minutes, but even then, so even by the standard, let's say that you after a certain point, you have to cut away, you know what I mean? Because other guys, so I always thought that was one of the worst things that he ever did, was he hated that. And he hated powder, which I always liked the powder though, but that's a whole other thing I'll get to. Because powder is visual. Anyway, and powder really does fucking, if it gets in your eyes, it really does fucking blind you for a sec. Because believe me, accidentally, I've taken many a powder in the eyes with forgetting to close my eyes at the proper moment. It's really annoying. Anyway, so that's how you end the show. I mean, you can't end every show like that, obviously, but that's one way to end the show. That's one way it's a hook. It keeps you interested. Psychologically speaking, it makes me, oh my God, it makes me excited. It makes me fucking mad. It makes me not mad like fuck the company, they fucked me, because it's not a fuck job. It makes me mad that I didn't get to see more, but in a good way where I'm willing to pay to see more. So that's how you run things, and people don't do that anymore. People don't close the shows hot. And back in the day, you always, not always, but, you found ways to close the show hot, maybe, or maybe you cut a hell of a promo as the show's going off the air. Maybe you see, maybe as the show's going off the air, fucking, I got Gabe, maybe like somewhere throughout the show, you see me stalking Gabe. Finally, but I can't ever find him. Finally, as the show's going off the air, Jim Ross is gone, or Lance Russell, or, whoever. Or Mike Tenay's going, my God, Raven just found fucking Gabe. And as they cut to the back, I'm just reaching to grab your throat, and I start wringing your neck, and they go, we're out of time! And people are like, oh, fuck, what happened? I mean, it's dramatic, and the best part is we know I'm not really wringing his neck, but it's all part of the suspension of disbelief, because we know it's, as long as you do things in a way where you don't insult the audience's intelligence, they were going to stay tuned in, and they're going to say, oh my God, did you see that? Did you see that? You don't go see a movie and go, oh my, when I see like a James Bond, I'm like, wow, did you see that shit? I don't go, oh, yeah, James Bond, he did that stupid thing where, he jumped the car, you go, oh, like when a movie's done right, you're like, man, did you see that fight scene? You don't go say, hey, did you see that great fake fight scene where they pretended to fight? Because, you know what I'm saying? Why even go then? Movies, TV, you agree to suspend disbelief, and it's our job to make sure that we're not letting you see the holes, you know what I mean? Because, when there's holes in the work, then people are like, it's much harder to suspend disbelief if I got a steel chair and if Duggan's got his piece of wood and he goes to hit you, but it's foam and it turns into an S shape. Remember that on WCW? They had the fake wood, which is ridiculous, and Duggan hated it because Duggan been using a piece of wood forever. He knows how to swing it, not to hurt you. I mean, he's been doing it for 20 years. They gave him a row of foam and it turned into an S shape. It was pretty funny.
How about the closing space thing?
The closing space.
Yes.
All right, the closing space. All right. Let me think. All right, if I throw an arm drag, and the one thing I hate is, you ever throw an arm drag and the guy gets up before you do? What's the point? The guy's like when you throw an arm drag, when you throw it, when you roll, the guy that hits, his inertia, his forward momentum, we covered inertia in the last video, his his forward roll is going to make him actually roll right to his feet, right? And I've seen guys doing it, roll right to their feet. I'm like, why would you do that? I just gave you an offensive move. Why would you beat me to my feet? And like, well, I landed that way. It's a work. Fake it. Pretend that you just took a bump. You know what I mean? Land flat. Don't roll through and land. Like, that's the guys like, well, that's how it's a work. It's fake. The outcome's predetermined. Set, like, it's like, if you know the next spot, if I'm beating your ass and you know the next spot is me shooting you off to the ropes, why would you stay in the middle and wait for me? Why don't you start crawling like you're trying to get some breathing space, create some space, crawling away from me towards the rope, so as you get to the rope, I can spin you around, shoot you right off. Instead of me having to pick you up, push you to a rope, and then shoot you off. Wouldn't it make more sense if you just sold? Because it's a work. You know what's coming. Sell yourself into positions. So all I got to do is shoot you off. And part of that is creating space. So you do this. I remember like Hector Guerrero. I gave him an arm drag one time, and he did bump, bump. He turned it, instead of rolling right to his feet, which of course he would never do because he can work, he went bump, bump, and got 2 bumps out of it. Like the way he landed, like a rock skipping. But the thing too is now, if I give you an arm drag, right, and let's say the spot is for me to give you an arm drag after arm drag after arm drag, like 3-4 arm drags in a row, whatever. So if I give you the first arm drag, boom, you go rolling. Now in this case, because you know you're feeding me again, you do want to come to your feet. You don't want to beat me to my feet because how dumb would that make me look? Why would I throw a move where you land first? So you have to time it. Which is why you always have to be watching what everybody else is doing and know what's going on. But you want, because you know that you're coming to get me another one, you want to take it in the roll, but you also want to create the space because, let me move my chair. She gave you one about creating space. So if I throw you and you land over there, if you roll right to your feet close and you just come right running, then there's not as much distance, so we can't get as much speed. We can't make it look as dramatic. So if you roll, and instead of not only rolling and landing facing me, you roll, you turn, which is why you always turn away from your opponent, and then you come running back in. So if you just roll, and then you just come running straight on, we've lost, the buildup of you getting the extra speed and the momentum, because now I've actually launched you with my arm drag. As you come up, you come running back the other way. So by going this way first, we're creating distance. By creating distance, we give you more time for more speed. He looks so much like Axel Rotten. He does. By creating some more distance, we have more distance, which is going to allow us to have more velocity and more impact when we actually hit, so it's going to look more dramatic. So, and by doing this, now, why would you turn away from your opponent? Well, you don't ever want to turn your way, but there's certain times where your natural inclination is to turn away. Like, in this case, you want to turn away because there's exceptions to every rule, first of all, but this time, because as you land, you're going to land here. Now, you can stay facing your opponent, but boom, to get back up this way, it's clumsy and it looks awkward. And you don't want to look clumsy and awkward, so you go with the thing which puts you this way. You take the extra step this way, because if you just stop and turn around, once again, now you've broken the momentum, you've broken the velocity, and made it look clumsy. So instead of stopping, you go with the momentum, step forward, now you've created more distance. And when I throw you, and when I throw the arm drag, boom, I'm going to step and turn the other way. So I come around like this, and now we've had even more distance. I've created distance on my side by getting further away. Because if I just arm drag you, boom, and get up, and he just gets up, we're this close. How's he going to run at me? There's no way to run it. There's not as much distance, not as much speed, not as much impact. So when I throw him, boom, I spin back around. He spins that way, so now we've both created even more distance, and as he comes running towards me, I can step in as well, now closing the distance, and I can throw him again, so now we're both, so basically we start in the center, out of the center, I bump him. I take a step away from the center, he goes the other way. When we come back, so now we've both stepped away from the center, now as we both come together, I'm back into the center, so he can bump in the center, because nobody wants to bump by the ropes, and because that looks like, first of all, it looks like crap, and B, the guy can get hurt. The hitting the ropes landed funny. So boom, now we meet back into center. So now we're both moving. So not only we created distance, now when we're both moving, now we both have speed. We have more impact because we're both moving. So boom, I arm drag him again. He goes that way now. I take my step this way, come back. Here we go back the other way, boom. And so that's why distance and space is so important. Creating space and closing space. So I mean that's just one example. Hold on a sec. You always want to have, very rarely do you ever want to just stay static. I mean, in wrestling, you should always be doing something, even when you're doing nothing. Now, that doesn't mean doing spots nonstop, which is why a lot of guys do spots nonstop, because they want to keep the action moving, but they're uncomfortable doing nothing. See, to me, there's a huge art to doing nothing. The Raven character would sit, because I know mine best, I would sit around, I'd start pig snorting, like I'm thinking, what am I going to do next? I'd start looking at the audience to engage the audience so they stay with me, you know what I mean? And then maybe I'll get to one knee, then maybe I'll get up, and so I'm because if I'm going nonstop, first of all, there's no time for the audience to digest what we're doing. If you do 35 high spots in a row, I can't remember any of it. Can you? Nobody can. All you can remember is the last thing, if you remember that. So you want to give the people time to digest what's going on. So you slow it down. Also gives the guy time to sell, or gives me time to sell, or whatever. Gives me time to get my character over, his character over. If it's like a Ricky Morton character, he'll get himself overselling. Oh my God, look how fucking hurt I am. If he's a Cactus Jack, he'll take a sec. Bing bing. And then he'll start hunching around, and he does all these little quirks and mannerisms and little things that make him more interesting as a person, because a guy who doesn't have any quirks, tics, or mannerisms isn't very interesting. So it makes him more interesting, and B, it also gives more time. So as he's doing, and he's bang bang, and he's doing his thing, and now he's setting a position, and really what he's doing is he's getting over the character, and he's letting the guy have time to sell. Do you know what I mean? Whereas guys don't do that, and guys are really self-conscious, because there you are, naked and exposed, doing nothing. It's like I'll watch guys all the time, and maybe the guy will go to hit his pose, but instead of stopping, hit your pose, a lot of guys will be like, and they're doing it while they're moving, because they're self-conscious. They're afraid if they stand still, stop, hit their pose, people might not pop for them. Whereas if you're moving, well, then they can't really pop for you because you're moving. So a lot of guys, you'll see it all the time as young guys, when they're you don't see it, they don't stop, take it all in, and hit their pose, because that requires a certain level of poise, requires a certain level of confidence. I remember watching Maven, who I didn't think was a particularly good worker, but what he did have was he had phenomenal poise for a guy who'd never really done anything. When he first started, a lot of guys in his position, would not have had the wherewithal. He just showed great poise. And poise is one of the few underrated, big underrated things in wrestling, because so many guys have no poise, no grace under fire. They get nervous, they get excited, they're rushing things. You see it all the time. You see guys rushing stuff, and when you're rushing stuff, you're not getting the most out of it. But creating space is a very important thing. There's examples of where it's really poorly done. Obviously some things we never done first were pretty good. I'm sure the first time the two guys went back to back, turned around, and they hated, they were arch enemies, and all of a sudden they're standing there, was phenomenal. But that's what somebody suggested to me in Dreamer thing, that as I crawl in the ring, somehow we go back to back, bump, turn around there. But I was like, that doesn't make any sense with this, because I'm not beat up, So and at the very least, if I do get up like I'm ready to fight, which I may have, why would you have your back to me? Because there's no one for you to fight. Now, however, if we had decided more guys need to come, we could have sent 5 guys out. Dreamer could have knocking them down. As I crawl into the ring, I'm gonna get up like this. But see, also, I've seen guys do this and barely touch back and not hit each other. And if you're looking over your shoulder to back, then the people can see you that. So it's got to be done perfectly. Plus, we sent 5 more guys, and it doesn't fit where we're going with the storyline. Now, if Punk had an army at the time, which he didn't, that would have made sense to send Punk's army and Dreamer beats him down, but it didn't, so there was no point in sending more people. So there's no way. So I think, if anything, I might have stood up, squared off like this, and then at the last sec, as I slide into the ring, and Dreamer's just standing there. You know what I mean? If we would have tried to back, it would have been horrible. But by me going backwards, son of a bitch, like this, and staggering around, I can get space. If I'm all the way over here, and Dreamer's all the way at the boxes, well, first of all, Dreamer's smart enough to know that, we want to try and get in the center so everybody can see it. But Dreamer's also smart enough to know that I can't, with justification, my character wouldn't slide into the ring and back up all the way to the center of the ring, because that's idiotic. Why wouldn't I look where I'm going? But it does make sense that I would get in, stagger, would kind of be half dazed, and see how my legs are spread apart. So I'm trying to get space so I can get closer to him without walking back into him. So I'm trying to get up at the last second, you know what I mean? And I got my hair in my face too, so I can't see, which is another thing. It's another trick. If your hair's in your face, obviously you can't see what's in front of you. So now I'm still trying to fight, but I'm so dazed. I throw my hair back, and there's Dreamer. Now he's by coming closer, he's closed the distance. If he stays all the way near the corner, it's not as much tension. If I'm off like, oh my God, it's Dreamer, and he's 6 blocks away, there's not as much tension. The closer we can get, the better. But he also can't crowd me. So if he's all the way back here, he can't walk up and stand right over me, because then why would he do it? Unless he's trying to, either A, he's going to beat me up, B, he's waiting until I see him to do it. But everybody has their own comfort space. You can't invade it because aesthetically, it only fits in certain scenarios, and this isn't one. So he's going to get as close as he can without invading my personal space. Because if he does invade my personal space, the minute I spring up, I'm going to have to hit him, but we don't want to do that. So if we wanted me to hit Dreamer, like say that was somebody else than Dreamer, say it was Stevie Richards, and they wanted me to hit him, then Stevie would have got close enough, maybe he would have grabbed me like he was helping me out, whereas I thought he's attacking me. Boom, I drill him. Oh, fuck, I drilled Stevie. That's not where we're going, but that's one reason why you would cover and encroach somebody's space. But Dreamer doesn't want to do that because we don't want to have the fake punch. We don't want to have me knock him down, and we don't want to have, all we want to have is the stare off. So he wants to get as close as he can. I want to get as much distance, so I'm out here. So I crawl into the ring like this. I got my hair in my eyes, so I can't see. This is the ring like that. The center of the ring is where the chair is, towards that direction. So I get up. Now, my character's not an idiot, so if his eyes aren't towards the center of the ring or in some capacity, it doesn't make any sense. It doesn't ring true to the character. So I'm going to try and be as not looking at the center as I can while still getting as close to it as I can, because why would I get in the corner with, like, if that's the corner, why would I stand up and square off with the corner? Because there's nobody there. So how can I get the most out of it? So by doing it where I'm staggering, where I'm dazed, I'm stumbling around, so it's not like I'm trying to not see that way. I just can't get up. And by not being able to get up, by staggering, A, I'm putting over the fact I got my ass kicked. B, I'm getting sympathy. C, I'm creating, and now I'm also closing distance so that I can get the Dreamer without actually seeing him, so we can have the big, when I finally do see him, flip my hair back, boom, there we are. So I want to get as close to the center as I can. It's most exciting in the center. When it's by the ropes, it doesn't look as visually as good because the ropes are right there. So once again, so if I get in, I slide in, and I'm staggering, maybe I fall to a knee, I'm still trying to get up, now I'm closing more space. I can only do that for so long without looking like an idiot. So now, see how I'm rocking? And by rocking, what it is it appears to the audience that I'm trying to get the strength to actually fully stand up. So if I'm rocking, and then I finally rock enough till I rock myself up, as I rock myself up, the hair comes back, I put my fists up like, oh fuck, it's Dreamer. See what I'm saying? You see what I'm saying? So much, say yes, so I know people, yes. Yeah. So that's my whole point. So, whereas I can close the distance, because the only reason I can close this distance is because I'm that beat up. Because if I'm not, why wouldn't I just look at him? So the only reason I can get from the ropes, from the floor into the ring, and get close to the center, without looking at him eye to eye, is by selling. So I'm selling, and I'm using my hands and my knees, and I'm rocking, trying to get the energy. And it's like, any normal person, if they had any strength, would not crawl into the ring this way. But this is all I've got left, and I have to make the people believe that, because if they don't believe that, they're going, why is he crawling into the ring? Why doesn't he just stand up? So I have to convince them that what I'm doing rings true to them, because otherwise, if it doesn't ring true, it's like a gladiator with a Rolex. So I have to be that beat up, and I have to be that convincing in myself that I don't have the strength to lift my head up to look. And when I finally do that, like now, so I rock, I put my hand here to brace myself, and see I'm all tilted, cockeyed, my eyes are all bugged out of my head, because I'm so beat up. Oh my! And then I see him. Now if I just see him, I go, oh, it's you. That's not exciting. I have to put over the fact that I just saw him. Holy fuck! And look, nobody fights like this, but that's as much as if I'm really ready to go, I'd be like, or whatever. You know what I mean? I wouldn't be like, this is all I got to muster, because I'm so beat up. I could barely stand. My hair's all fucking out, like Bill Murray and fucking Kingpin. My eyes are bugged out. I'm like this, and I'm still, see, my leg is still shaking. I'm still trying to find my balance. I don't all of a sudden see, oh, it's Dreamer. Oh my God, oh, okay, what are you doing here? And it's like, but I see guys do it all the time. All of a sudden, he stops selling. Why would you stop? Stay on the cell, you know. And then, you know what? They're watching me. I'm not taking away from the angle, but they're watching me. That's the object. You want them watching you, you know. I will never take away from somebody else in the ring because that's not good etiquette. But by the same point, if they can't keep their eyes off me, if the fans can, it's not my fault, you know. Unless now, if I'm doing stuff to distract, let's say Punk is in the background doing jumping jacks, distracting from us. That's not his job. That's bullshit. If he's over there in the corner doing a supercell, spitting up, doing his great job, that's stealing from us because that's not his spot. He had his turn, and he'll have his turn again, but this isn't it. So in this moment, it's me and Dreamer. Now, if I'm, you know, like this, and I'm all tweaked out, that's me. This all fits in with what we're supposed to be doing. So that's fine to keep making, you know, but now if all of a sudden I started doing stuff that doesn't fit in to draw attention to me, that's wrong. As long as you're keeping within the confines of what you're supposed to be telling, the story, there's nothing wrong with making, you know, being the focal point. Because it's like I've said before, like, you know, I watched Lawler and Funk one time, and I could take my eyes off Funk. You know, and Lawler just had to stomp his ass waiting in the ring for Funk to get in the ring. But that's what was going on. I mean, there wasn't nothing had happened yet. Funk was making his entrance, but you couldn't take your eyes off him. You know, when Ric Flair's getting beat up, or back in the day, you didn't watch the guy hitting him, you watched Flair bumping. I mean, it's a subtle distinction, but a true one. When I watched him, I saw Flair going up, down, up, down. I didn't see Luger going punch, punch. I saw Flair going up, down, up, down. That's what you wanted to watch. You wanted to watch you, not, you know, you wanted to watch the whole thing, but I'm saying, but if they had to say what they saw, instead of them saying, I saw Lex knocking Flair down, you want to say, I saw Flair getting beat up. You know, instead of them saying, I saw Lex kicking his ass, you wanted to say, I saw Flair getting his ass kicked. It's a subtle distinction, but it's also why Flair was so fucking good, you know? I want people to say, man, I just saw Raven get his ass kicked. I don't want them to say, I saw Dreamer kick his ass, you know? I want them to say Dreamer kick Raven. That's all I wanted to know. I mean, I want them to know that. But if they had to pick between one and the two, it's kind of like, it's like that, what's that picture where it's like two pictures in a picture, and you can look at it one way, Jay Blink, and you look at it the other way, fucking Mother Teresa or something? You know, everybody, you know what I'm talking about?
No.
You know what I'm talking about, right?
I do, yeah.
What's it called?
I don't know what they're called.
Yeah, something that's like a...
Optical illusion?
Yeah, well, yeah, or like...
like the woman's head one is one I think of.
Yeah, it's like, you know, if you look at it, you can see, or you can see it's either, you know, black with white dots or white with black dots or whatever. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's an optical illusion, but that's not the... I know that, dumbass. But what I'm saying is, but... You know, you can see both. You can see it either way. You know what I'm saying? It's still the same picture. You know what I mean? But you want the picture to be on you, not on him, without taking away from the story. You never want to take away from the story.
How about taking an angle you were involved in and walking us through it?
I dare you to buy some air conditioning. All right.
Maybe something from ECW, whatever your favorite angle is from there.
One of my favorite angles actually was from Portland. I don't know if I ever told this one. Oh, it's a pretty cool tattoo. That blue flame, aqua flame thingy looking.
No.
What's the letter for?
It means dangerous.
No, who gives a fuck. Anyway, fucking so I dare you to buy some AC. Anyway, can I have another water? Somebody give me a bottle of water, please.
Rhett.
Yeah, Rhett, frankly, my dear, I don't give a damn.
You know where they're at, right?
All right, so I was in Portland. If I did this angle before, let me know. I had a valet, Ginger.
Yes.
I did do that.
Yes.
And I talked about how each week we did the wedding storyline.
Yeah.
All right, I did do that. Okay. I can't remember which ones I've told.
How about ECW? Because at least a lot of people watching it will.
All right, well, give me
know
a... Yeah, well,
Chair shot heard around the world. How about that?
all right. Well, yeah, but that's just like one part of the piece. I mean, I can't...
Yeah.
The whole story is kind of hard. Let me... What other storyline did I remember more of with the actual piece. All right, me and Dreamers, there was so much that I can't, you know, it's hard to break it down or remember so much, but let me think. Hold on, let me think of something. All right, one of the, it really wasn't that great an angle, but the storyline, if you would have had it was so cleverly done, so brilliantly done, but it just wasn't the right characters at the right time, so it didn't have any of the impact that if it would have been done at a different time or place, but... and you're gonna pop it, the Luger Tatanka angle. Remember that? but it was really done. Like what happened was Luger was like Luger was the new baby face, I believe, and Tatanka was a baby face, and Tatanka had been a baby face for quite some time, and this angle had been done before, I believe, with Jimmy Garvin in Florida, but I don't remember it. But yeah, this is so intriguing. It was so cleverly done. So Tatanka had been a babyface for quite some time. Luger, I think, had either turned recently or had just got with the... Yeah, I think he just turned recently from the narcissist, which nobody knows what a narcissist is, so that's why I didn't get over. But, I mean, and to the All-American guy. But so what happened was, and I don't remember all the pieces, but I can give you a basically rough assessment, is Luger, DiBiase was the heel manager, and because Luger had known him before and he was a heel, Luger is a spy talking to DiBiase or something. And Tatanka's like, I think fucking, this is kind of bullshit or whatever. And so, and this is played out over weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks. And the art of a good angle is, okay, the secret to a good angle, like the grappler told me, is, all right, you built it, you want to have an idea where you're going. Paulie used to have a couple of, I think Paulie's way was the best. That's how I try and do it too, is you have an idea where you're going. However, there's potential other outcomes just in case, because sometimes the story tells itself. What's happened to the business now is, they just let the story tell itself, and they have no game plan. So you don't have, and because a lot of times the stories don't tell themselves, sometimes they do, sometimes they don't have any big payoff. And WWF used to be done brilliantly. They would have 6 months, this is where they wanted to go, and they would shoot for that. Sometimes they were too rigid, like with Billy Graham, because Billy Graham was so, they knew to the day, I mean, it's, I think it was in the sheets or something, a lot of stuff with Billy Graham lately, but the office knew to the day, when they were taking the belt off Billy Graham, before he ever got the belt. They said, all right, we need an interim champion, because that was always a babyface territory. We're taking the belt off of Pedro, Bruno, whoever, Backlund. It was off of Backlund, I guess. I don't know, whoever it was off. It was off somebody. They're taking the belt off somebody, and they're putting it on Billy Graham, and they brought Billy Graham in for that, and they said, we're going to keep it to you until either this week or that week. They knew within 3 weeks when they were putting him back off him, and then they were going to give it to Backlund, and that time they decided, oh yeah, and that's what they were going to groom Backlund. So this 9 months or whatever it was, we're going to groom Backlund, so in 9 months he'll be ready for the belt. And they found Backlund in Florida, and in a different territory, and if they were going to bring him in, blah, blah, blah. And believe it or not, Backlund was actually, he was pretty, when he came in, he was gacked. I mean, he was really well built, and he got over, but, once he stopped working out, and so once he stopped weight working out and went more just, cardio, and he lost the build, then, the howdy-doodiness kind of, killed the orbit. That's another story for another time. But Billy Graham was just so unbelievable. And it's ironic because I remember when I first started watching him, I always thought he looked old when I was young, when I was really young, because he was kind of old. I mean, because, he had balding and stuff, because guys didn't bald like they do now, you know what I mean? Or at least, I don't know, you weren't stars and balded, you know what I mean? But, obviously, I'm sure the gas, the amount of gas he was taking balded him early. But the older you get, the more, what a phenomenally charming fucking, what a great fucking character. It's not a gimmick, it's a character, you know what I mean? It's a personality. And it's a shame because, it's funny because if he came along now, they never give him a chance. He would make him cut his hair, lose the tie-dye, put on a pair of trunks, and just cookie cutter him. And he probably, and because he wasn't a good worker, he probably never would have got over because he wasn't a good worker, but he's a money-drawing machine. But they knew to the exact date they were taking the belt off him, and which sometimes you can be too rigid because he got so over, they should have just turned him babyface and just let him run. But they didn't, and it fucked him up mentally, and, it's a shame. It's a really shame because he was phenomenal. And he was not a good worker, but he'll tell you that, which, once again, proves it's not about the work, you know what I mean? And I know people say, well, it's a different era. Well, yeah, but the psychology never changes. People go, well, look, Cena doesn't get as over because he can't work as good. But you know what? If they didn't put him in the impossible position, if they didn't put the belt on him, because from what I understand, once they took the belt off him, people stopped booing him, You can only push people to a certain extent, but work rate's highly fucking one of the least, today's version of work rate is one of the least important things. Anyway, so they knew when they were taking the belt off Billy Graham. So that's how they used to book it, and that's how you should book to an extent. I mean, you should have this is where you want to go, but you have a couple other ideas in case it doesn't work out or in case this gets better, you can run with that. You don't have to just stay with it. We started one thing and stories would go way over here, you know what I mean? We were planning to go here, they'd go way over here. And we follow them around, they come back here, and then sometimes, we didn't always get where we were going, but we knew that if we didn't get where we're going, we were going to go somewhere else. We had some other ideas. But now they just go, okay, let's just do this, and we'll worry about it next week. And that's why you have continuity mistakes. Continuity mistakes are horrendous, because what happens is, as a fan, you're like, you don't, I remember that one of the worst payoffs ever for an angle was this angle they did with Jimmy Garvin and Sullivan. It was a typical Sullivan angle where there's no payoff. They never thought it through, so they kept talking about Garvin's wife, Patty. And they kept putting about this history between Patty and Jimmy, instead of calling her Precious, which is what they called her on TV, they called her Patty, like his shoot name, you know what I mean? So, and back then they didn't, so you're like, ooh, something going on. Yeah, I never figured out where it was going, and nothing ever happened, it just died on the vine. And you're like, oh. And it's like, what the fuck? Or like Jimmy Garvin and Ronnie Garvin, same territory, they never said they were brothers. So, and then finally one day they did, and you're kind of like, well, are they brothers, are they not? But it wasn't like, they didn't build the intrigue, it wasn't like, you're just like, well, if they're brothers, why aren't they telling us? And if they're not, then why aren't they telling us? You know what I mean? You can't insult your fans. The fans may be dumb in many things, but they're much dumber in certain areas, but they're much smarter in certain areas, you know what I mean? And the longer you're a fan, the more you figure things out. It's not that the fans so much are smizarder. It's just that you watch wrestling long enough, you know the beats and the pauses and how things react. You know that if this happens, that happens. Which is why I try never to do anything that's expected. It's like a really simple spot. This used to be a really popular spot. The guy would be selling. One guy would be on the floor. The guy would knee him, an elbow in the block in the shoulder. The guy in the ring would bend over, and the guy on the outside would slingshot in and do a somersault. And sunset flip him. Very popular spot. And Colonel De Beers, I probably talked about this before. Colonel De Beers, I saw him do it one time. He just moved. I mean, how simple is that? The guy slingshots in, he just moved. The guy took, you never expected it. You never saw it coming, because it's not, that's all it is. That's why Finley's getting over, because he does different stuff. I really like to see some of that stuff, too. But, but I just know him, you know what I mean? But, I gotta actually get a tape of some of that. But the thing is that you never go where they're expecting. So this brings you back to the angle, with, but you should have an idea where you're going at least, at least an idea. So the Tatanka-Luger thing was really well done. They knew where they were going. Man, they played it marvelously, but it's just, the business was down, Luger wasn't over like he needed to be, Tatanka wasn't, over like he needed to be, and just the business was really in a rut. I mean, it was really down. But, in fact, that might have been the single worst year, one of the 2 or 3 worst years, the last 20. It was like 90, wait, what was it like in?
Probably like 93.
93, 94, yeah. So anyway, so you'd never think those two would be a great angle, but it really was. So what happened is, so Luger, so Tatanka, spots Luger being with DiBiase about something, and he brings it up, and and they question Luger about it. Luger's like, I'm not even gonna dignify that. So now the seed's planted, all right? Because Tatanka's a babyface. He said it, and we have no reason to believe anything, but he's loyal because he's been 100% babyface from the day he's got there, which is probably like 2-3 years ago now. But he's done nothing to intimate a turn, or they would even think of turning him. So he's like, yeah, blah, blah, blah. And Lex is like, I'm not going to dignify that. And, and Lex is kind of a snobby character anyway. So you're like, So something else happens. And what they did was they kept setting up scenarios, which I don't remember the specifics, but this is how you make an angle work. Is you have you want to drag. It's not drag is not the right word. You want to play it out over time, so people can get into it, and it's just like a match. If you do 80 million things real quick, you can't follow any of it. So you want to boom, boom, and you want to build. And each week you want to throw another little piece, another wood in the fire, I guess, or another card in the deck. Boom, and you just keep, Now you take it too long, you've lost your audience because, if you drag it out too long. So there's an art, and that's part of being a great booker. There's an art to knowing just how long to play a scenario out, and this was played out perfectly. And I forget how long it was, but I just remember watching it, going, "Wow! If this was done with different people, this would be the most unbelievable angle ever." And no offense to them, but I mean, Tatanka's angles weren't his strong suit, and Lex is Lex. So 1 week, so maybe week 1, Tatanka says something, you know what I mean? And the commentator's like, ooh. So the second week they come to Luger, and he's like, I'm not even going to dignify that. So the third week, maybe they fucking do a thing where they have a match where somebody goes, where Luger's having a match, Luger and Tatanka are in a tag maybe, and fucking DiBiase, was that what happened?
Thanks.
Something like that. I don't even remember it at all, but I know how to book, so I'm just piecing it together how I would do it. So maybe they're in a tag, fucking, maybe something happens, DiBiase fucking gongs the fucking other heel. Tatanka sees it, but Lex doesn't. Lex covers the guy 1, 2, 3. Tatanka's like, what the fuck? You said DiBiase help. He's like, I didn't see it. He didn't see it. But he's like, well, now we're like, wait a minute, come on, Lex, fucking, you knew about that. And so maybe the next week, now maybe they do something where maybe there's fucking face-to-face with Luger and Tatanka while they discuss this. Now it's like 4 weeks now, we've built this now. So they haven't drug it. So maybe now there's a face-to-face with them, and they're like, blah, blah, blah. Maybe now, here comes DiBiase, fucking, DiBiase starts coming, hey, come on, Lex. So DiBiase starts playing up to Lex. So we're like, oh, he's like, because even if DiBiase isn't aligned with Lex, he's still going to try and win him over. So we still don't know. So DiBiase comes out and he's like, come on, Lex. You don't have to put up with the Tatanka. And like, and Tatanka's like, see, that's what I'm talking about. Maybe him and Lex square off. Fucking whatever. Maybe DiBiase gets between them. Somehow, how would I do it? If DiBiase's like, come on, Lex, let's leave. Maybe Tatanka goes to hit DiBiase, and maybe Lex blocks it and fucking hits him back out of instinct or whatever. Boom, now Lex just hit Tatanka or, whatever, and now you're like, motherfucker. But Lex is like, oh my God, I can't believe I did that, because he's still babyface. And Tatanka's like, you motherfucker, I knew it. And DiBiase's just laughing. So you're still not sure where it is, but it's really, it doesn't point anywhere but the Luger being a heel or a misunderstanding. You're not even remotely seeing the double turn. I mean, you're not even remotely, not a double turn, you're not even remotely seeing Tatanka getting ready to turn, because he's done nothing to indicate it. Now, maybe if, even I was a long-time wrestling fan, well, I probably saw it coming, but, maybe if you're a long-time fan, you might see it, but, and obviously in this day and age, you have to adapt to the times, because, if things are so obvious black and white, sometimes that's a dead giveaway. You know what I mean? Like, I'll watch a movie. I was watching a movie the other day, and the girl I'm seeing, I was like, I bet this happens. And this guy was in a scene. I go, I bet he's the guy, or whatever. And she's like, nah. And then, like, boom, boom, boom. At the end of the thing, turns out he's the guy or the killer or whatever. And she's like, how'd you know? I'm like, well, there is no other reason for him to have been introduced in this act. You know what I mean? Like, it just doesn't fit for any other reason unless he's the guy at the end, so we just don't introduce him out of nowhere. Although I did one time see a thing that was I forget what it was so brilliant, where they didn't even, like, if you don't introduce the killer, 5 minutes, I can get this in. If you don't introduce the killer before the end of the series, and the same psychology, whether it's in movies or whatever, if you don't introduce the killer to the end, all of a sudden the killer pops up in the last frame, you're like, that's bullshit. You can't just, hey, it's him or it's him or it's him, and the guy was never even in the show, and at the last second, the butler shows up, and there was no butler, and he stabs the guy. But I seen one show where it's done so well where that actually happened. The guy wasn't even in the show, and it turned out the killer was some guy that wasn't in the show, and it worked. So there's ways to make anything work. You just have to think it through. So basically, the thing with Luger and Tatanka, so finally they set up, and this is where my memory really fails me, but so basically now we got 4, 5, 6 weeks in. They might have even taken a little longer, maybe a little too long, whatever. I don't really remember, but I don't think it was too long, but it was probably like 5, 6, 7 weeks in, and now it's like, now we need resolution, because as a fan, you got to give it, like, unless you can find other ways to do it, like Dreamer Raven, we kept throwing other things in the path, so we never had to give a resolution to Dreamer actually beating Raven for 2.5 years. And we could have done it for another couple of years, because I'd bring in the Pitbulls, he would turn them with him, they'd come after me, I'd bring in somebody else, he'd turn them, so we kept throwing in distractions and things, but this was a pretty straightforward one-on-one at a place where it was going. So basically, where's my order? So basically, what do we got on time? 2 minutes? 3 minutes?
3
Perfect.
minutes. Just like Barely Legal.
I'm going to walk it right up to the last second. Exactly, just like Barely Legal. Paulie, I save lives. The foot doctor, I save lives. Anyway, so it gets to that point to finally build up, and now we build up to, I don't know if it's a match with Luger and Tatanka. Do you remember? It was
for some reason I think it was a tag.
Yeah, maybe it was probably a tag, probably another tag with the two of them. Something.
Corporation and then those two.
Yeah, something, whatever. You fucking Mark. Anyway, so we'll probably build up to a tag or something where there's some stakes at hand. You know what I mean? And this is the final thing. And to me, if I was doing it, I would build, because I can't remember, but I would build it to where there's stakes involved. Like, not to say this, you could do it the stakes of a hair versus hair, but I'm saying, but something, and not between those two. But let's say, this would be an interesting way to go. So let's say that it builds down to a match between Tatanka and fucking and Joe Blow, and DiBiase's going to have one last match, and the loser gets his head shaved, and somehow fucking, or actually, I would do this right before the main blow-off, and somehow fucking DiBiase gets involved, and fucking, to go like he's going to help Lex, and fucking, he helps Lex, but Lex doesn't want the help or something, and Tatanka ends up getting his head shaved or something. So now you're like, and now Lex is like, I swear to God, I didn't know. Because if you put some stipulations, some meat on it, now it's like, oh, fuck. Now something drastic consequences have happened. The more jeopardy, the more consequences, the better. So boom, so you have something like that before the big payoff. So you would think that's the payoff, but it's not the payoff. Because maybe, and so, what do we got on time? 2 minutes? I still got time. So you got to, but see how I'm getting more animated, so I'm building it up. I'm trying to increase the drama of the thing. Not that it needs it, but just that's an example. That's psychology. Anyway, so long story short, too late. basically you can get a couple big blow-offs before the real blow-off. But what finally happened is for however they did it, I don't remember how, is basically it turned out that fucking the key point, Tatanka fucks Luger. The last thing you were fucking expecting, and he walks off with DiBiase. What it was done because they were building Lex for the big push. They were going to give him the belt, and they were building him for that. And what a great way to do that! I got to give me my 1 and my 30 seconds. You got to count me down. And so they were building to the big. They wanted to, so how you get more over. The people see you as kind of a babyface, but they're not sure, and now they think you're turning heel. And then finally you get fucked. Now you're sympathetic, and then you overcome it. You've triumphed even more. So now it's more dramatic, and it's really a brilliant way they went about 1 minute. Really brilliant way they went about getting Lex over. It didn't work out the way they wanted it to, but not for a lack of execution. And so the last thing you expected was Tatanka to turn, because there was never an indication of it. He had never been a white meat babyface from day one. He was the one that pointed out Lex fucking, he's hanging out with DiBiase. He's doing this. Every single situation, which could also be explained by a misunderstanding, painted Lex in the bad light. So it always painted him bad. Well, give me my 30s. Good. 30? 15? Where are we at? You got to count 30. Me down. 30? This is 30. At least I think it is. Anyway.
15 now.
It's 15? Maybe it was 15 then. Anyway, every scenario, they painted it so, like, if it was either a misunderstanding or Lex turned. So you never expected it. When Tatanka turned, I mean, it was just brilliantly done, but that's how you do storylines. You lead them one way, you give them something, and then you give them something else. Or you think you're going to give them something else, and then you give them what you want to do in the first place. But you have to book it week by week by week, and you have to know where you're going or have an idea where you're going so you can tell the story the way you need to.
Perfect. Secrets of the Ring, Volume 6 or 5 is in the books. We'll see you next time.